Okay, we are live. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
So, hello,
Okay,
Welcome
everyone.
back, everybody.
there are multiple people today, not just one. We've got the whole gang here. Hope everyone can hear us and see us okay. If anything sounds off, looks off, just let us know in the chat. But good to see everyone again. How are we feeling on this lovely Friday afternoon?
Very celebratory, right? Huh? I'm good to go, basically.
I am jealous of your giant mug. All I have is a little baby mug. It's got Three Stooges on it at least, so mine's comical, but
I feel like I won't run out of
yeah.
anything to drink during the stream, so I should be good to go.
I think we'll get to use that
And
"Be
yeah,
Right Back" scene though when you need to.
What is the beverage of
I might need to
choice?
run um, something celebratory, if I say. I can't say because I'm working. But yeah, we're celebrating, right?
Exactly. It's been quite the week. I'm sure. I don't know about you guys, but it's been long, but it's been a lot of fun. It feels like it's been a long week, but a fantastic one. Obviously, celebrating with our community, but we still have time. The celebration is not over just yet. So welcome everyone who's just kind of moseying on into the stream. This one is going to be a lot more relaxed, a lot more chilled out than other streams. We do have a rough agenda for things, but could take a turn. It's going to be a little bit ad hoc, and it's really just to kind of relax and enjoy the closing day of the celebration. Our sale is still ongoing until tomorrow, until Saturday, and then our sort of forum events are still ongoing throughout the day. So yeah, come on in. I guess we can do quick introductions for anyone who hasn't managed to see our lovely faces on stream throughout the week. So my name is Andy, or known as Astrobob on the forums. I hosted some streams earlier on in the week, sort of getting up and running with LaunchBox. If you're brand new to LaunchBox and diving into some of its cool features, and really enjoyed that. Had a great turnout. I've also been running a lot of the events that have been happening throughout the week, such as our playlists, which you can still contribute to. There's still time. But we also have the lovely Fayran with us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, doing great. Was just on the stream with you guys yesterday. See a lot of familiar names. Uh, I'm. Are we introducing ourselves again? Is that what's happening? I am Brian, the product manager, and I was building themes yesterday, and it was a good time. And now I'm ready to play some games and answer all of those burning questions that you collected for us, Andy.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be hopefully we'll all learn something with some questions. We do have the AMA threads, which we're going to be going through. So if anyone submitted a question and is on the stream, we will hopefully get to your questions. Of course, like we said, a bit of a ad hoc stream. So if anything pops into your mind, feel free to drop stuff in the chat. We are going to be trying to answer things throughout the day, throughout the evening in the chat, but also any sort of interesting ones we can pull up and we can chat about on stream as well. And we also have Mr. Nibble here. I have to refrain myself from calling you Mystery Nibble, but I don't know which one is which one sounds cooler.
I'll go with mine. I don't I don't want to be too much of a mystery, but appreciate that. Yeah, I'm Josh, Mr. Nibble, and I did a stream a couple of days ago on some coding. Made a fun little plugin that made LaunchBox a little bit more immersively annoying, I suppose, with a nice plugin that made you blow into the microphone to launch your NES games, just like we all remember. Around here, I wear lots of different hats. I am a developer at heart, but also like business and all of the stuff behind the scenes of making making groups like ours move forward really productively. Oh, and games, don't
Yeah.
don't talk less. Please talk more.
Yeah, for
Exactly. Yeah, it's
sure.
really nice to see a lot of familiar faces coming back through the chats. For those of you who've been joining the streams throughout the week, we really appreciate the time. And yeah, it's nice to see. It's nice to start getting to know familiar names as well. You see the same names coming up. So thank you all for contributing throughout the week. Just to answer a couple of questions. So for those, if you haven't managed to catch some of the streams, they're all available on our Twitch for a short while. We're thinking about potentially uploading those as well somewhere else, but for now they're all available. So definitely feel free to pick one that suits your interest, and you can go and rewatch those. Um, we we also definitely hope that the conversation keeps going on the forum as well after the celebration. It's definitely been a busy week on the forum, and we hope to sort of keep that going. But thank you for saying the stream's been great this week. It's very kind of you. In terms of how do we know if we've got the giveaway? So obviously our giveaway closes, I believe, tomorrow. So there's still time. And I will say that if you haven't already, I'm sure most of you probably have managed to receive the secret code already. But if you haven't, then we will be having a secret code later on in the stream that can boost your chances in the giveaway. That one, again, those codes are only valid for a particular day. So if this is definitely your last chance and the last day to grab one of those sweet codes today. So we'll let you know when that comes up later on. In terms of how you'll know if you've won, we'll obviously need time to process things after it closes, but you will be contacted. I believe Gleam will contact via email, but if it's for one of the forum competitions, then you will be messaged through the forum. So hopefully not too long after the event closes, but you will be contacted next week. Yep, and as Josh said, please don't talk less. Please talk more. We definitely want to. We're all going to be yabbering a bit too much today.
Like Einbrander, if you do have a question, by all means, throw it in the chat. We hopefully can respond. It is an AMA, and anything that you ask, hopefully we can get to yet today. I don't know how long we're sticking around today, but I think we'll have some time.
I think Josh, your stream has gone down in infamy of it says legendary to take part in Mr. Nibble's first stream.
It is. It's.
I definitely did enjoy that one.
Yeah, a printout is already on my mom's fridge, so being held up by a letter A magnet for awesome, I think.
Hey, I enjoyed it, that's for sure. And once you release it, I will be using it and make sure that I can blow into my microphone.
So what have you guys, is there any particular highlights for you guys from this week? Like what have you enjoyed doing or seen happen throughout the week? Any particular highlights?
I've been loving to see everybody's playlists on both of those threads, like the community top 5 and the party time playlists. And just I love the idea that, you know, if you haven't added your say in either of those playlists, I would recommend going to do so, because just the idea that everyone has a voice, everyone's choices of their best and favorite games are going to be, you know, immortalized into big box for people to see on the Games Discovery Center. And so I don't know, just seeing everybody's choices is giving me a whole lot of ideas of games to play. And really that's the whole idea and concept of what we do here is play games. And the discovery of new ones is always great, amazing for me. And of course the streams, just being able to talk to all of you guys. And yeah, hopefully we can keep this going after the event. That would be something.
Yeah, if anybody wants more of this sort of thing, please let us know what topics really spoke to you next week. But on top of just gaming, we have the I wouldn't say distinct pleasure, but we have a unique involvement in all of this as the team that helps create the tools that are on your computers helping you out. And it seems like this celebration has really opened up a lot of people providing feedback who have been using it for a long time. And so seeing the emails come in of people like, hey, I don't need the license. Thanks for the discount anyway. But I've been using it for 8, 10, whatever years, and it's really changed it. And I see one in the chat of how it changed how you do things. Getting those little bits of feedback as a business and as a developer and as a community that's trying to create tools for you, that's ultimately why we do it, is to bring that joy to you. So that feedback has probably been my favorite thing because it sort of ramped up this week.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
and I think we definitely want to keep the momentum going. As you also saw, for me personally, I've really enjoyed being able to sort of share some insight and post into the company itself. So with our Meet the Team posts, getting to know some folks who you may not know by name, by face, who sort of work tirelessly behind the scenes. And of course, there's a lot more than what we were able to showcase this week. So it is a growing team, and yeah, we definitely want to feel less just like a sort of piece of software, but also a team behind it that is working alongside it. So yeah, really happy to hear LaunchBox has totally changed how I do things. Appreciate all your work, and we appreciate your support. Um, the daily game gauntlet threads have been really interesting as well, and I've personally enjoyed looking at those. Been really interesting to see the results of those. It's funny, I'm following the sort of voting on the games, and I'll sort of go to bed as soon after the post goes out, and then I'll wake up and the voted game has sort of totally changed. And yesterday's one was quite interesting because it was literally neck and neck between two games. And I was thinking, I was like, I'll just leave it a bit longer, sort of see which one comes out on top. And I sort of left it as late as I could, and it was a draw. And there were two games with exactly the same number of votes. So we thought, well, let's just throw them both in there. But yeah, there's still time on that, and interesting to see which one. I think Castlevania Advanced Collection is currently leading the final day of the Game Gauntlet as the ultimate gaming collection. Definitely a lot of Castlevania love going on right now, especially with the Dominus Collection shadow dropping this week. So yeah, if that comes out on top, there'll be a fair few keys of that going out. Hopefully, sounds like there's a lot of Castlevania fans with us. We have a question about what are we thinking? Forum, Discord, Twitch, best place to keep the conversation going. So, of course, the forum is a sort of active platform. We've maintained that, and we want to continue to do that. A lot of the new sort of community initiatives that we're looking at will obviously happen on the forum. I can say we're trying to, we are thinking internally of how we can improve Discord. We've got some sort of initiatives to look at, just making it easier for people to engage and also to kind of get support and find answers to the things that they need. We definitely want to see how we can do better on that front. And then Twitch, of course, is the new platform for us. Not new in the sense of kind of what we do on it, but we are sort of thinking about, do we want to do, these streams for us have been a great success. We've enjoyed doing them, and we're thinking how we can continue to do these and what type of content would be interesting going forward. This was interesting about, I saw this a few times this week. People kind of were curious to know sort of the gamification of the LaunchBox / Big Box license as to how long they've been members and how long it's been since they've purchased. It could be a fun little feature to see. Hey, I'm this level in LaunchBox. LaunchBox achievements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a way to check. You can check, just like Joe Viking saying there, you can check your date stamp on the license itself. If you just open up that file, you will have it in your LaunchBox folder, and that'll tell you the date. But yeah, that'd be kind of cool to just see an achievement of how long that you played LaunchBox, how long you've played
Yeah.
LaunchBox. Uh, uh, but Andre, you had a question about how do you prefer to report bugs, and that's an interesting one. Um, if it's a crash report, or let's say something is freezing or something like that's going on, then you can post over on the Bitbucket. And for that, it would be uh, it would only be helpful if you wanted to post on the Bitbucket if you included the whole crash report and re reproduction steps, like what exactly did you do that is causing this, with as much detail as you can, because there is, as we know, a million ways to do the same thing in LaunchBox. Uh, and that's just because we automatically, like, you could do nothing and we will automatically get your crash reports in our admin console. So really, you don't have to do anything. We do get crash reports automatically, but but the value for us is for you to explain to us exactly what you were doing and what scenario, any kind of detail that you can provide. Uh, that is very helpful. But if it's more like a user issue and you don't really know which one it is, the forums would be the best place for you to start, because you might get much quicker help there. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
Speaking
the
of
answer to that
platforms,
question.
so speaking of
Nice.
platforms, someone mentions Reddit as well, and that's another platform similar to Discord where we are wanting to sort of just kind of improve the way that we can, or we sort of enable people to provide support on those platforms. Obviously, it can be confusing as a new user. Some people have their preferences as to where they go. We obviously maintain social channels as well, um, and a lot of our support is comes from our sort of gracious community. They spend a lot of time, and our moderators as well, who put a lot of time and effort into helping out users. So definitely, sort of that's certainly on my plate, is to look at some of those and make it just an easier, more sort of inviting, friendly experience. But it's great to see all the chats. Thank you so much. Yeah, license from 2019.
Can you believe that 2019 was 5 years ago? That just, like, makes me feel old, I guess, is the best way to put it. Uh, it's like, wasn't it just yesterday, like 2019? Like, wasn't it like the year
It was
of
pre-COVID,
2019
wasn't
and
it?
then the year of COVID and then the year is now? Isn't that all that happened in the world?
Yeah, when does COVID officially become retro? Like,
Uh, oh
it's a
man.
retrovirus. It's a retrovirus.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
So I see a question about
any more
Jason.
questions, or shall we? Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so,
yeah.
so
I was
you
going
talk
to
about
say,
how old we feel. So if you happened across my Meet the Team post, I teased in there that I've known Jason since before LaunchBox was a thing. He used to work for me. I in another life ran a consulting company, and he was one of my developers, and really good guy, really smart, really capable developer, but he had been working on LaunchBox on the side, and so I had a copy of LaunchBox before there were licenses, so I can't really tell you how old my copy of LaunchBox is. But I stayed in touch with him, and he's always a great guy, always fun to talk to, and had a lot of fun over the last I think I've known him now for 14 years. And he's still thriving. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of new faces this year with mine and Andy, and part of that is not because Jason's disappeared or gone away, but he's looking to split his schedule more flexibly with other activities. And so we made some decisions to kind of move some things around so that this whole world gets to keep moving forward. Hopefully, at least as good, if not a lot better.
Yeah.
yep, absolutely. So keep the questions coming through the chat. We'll do our best to follow up. I think we're going to go ahead and jump into. So the way this is going to work, and this is where we need your help, chat, is that both Josh and Brian here are going to head to head in some games. I'm sort of the mediator here, and to basically stop things getting heated and stop them fighting. But I hear they're very competitive. I hear There's some Tapper shade that could be thrown around. So that's my job, is to step in if things get not no longer a PG-13 stream. So but we need your help to actually pick those games. So what we'll do is keep an eye on the chat shortly. When we do begin, we are going to be posting a subset of games for you to vote on. And these are small, they're all sort of follow the theme of sort of retro style, sort of shorter arcade games. They'll be getting both of their screens up and sort of going head to head, mostly in sort of a high score competition or depending on the game. So, of course, please help us pick the one that you think would be interesting. So while I get that first poll ready, I think, and I should say what we're going to do in the meantime, in between games and as we go through, we're just going to be trying to answer as many questions as we can. So I think we'll start with a question, and then while the team elaborates on that, I will get the poll ready. We'll let the folks vote on what the first game is going to be. If that sounds like a good plan, I think we'll get started.
Let's do it.
I think, and I did joke. I've said I've promised them that whoever loses the game has to answer the difficult questions. So it is in your best interest to
lose on
go
purpose.
For the high score. Okay. I'm going to shout out these users who submitted on the AMA. If you're here, if it's your question, then of course, welcome to the stream, and do say hi in the chat. And I do apologize in advance. I am absolutely going to butcher some usernames here, so please bear with me. This is an interesting question, and one that I think we can certainly elaborate on. This comes from Andrew Speck, and the gist of it basically says, what do you think about an initiative for synchronizing emulated saves, especially with the more sync-friendly emulators? So a lot of people use things like SyncThing, solutions like EmuDeck, and things like that. Obviously we have LaunchBox for Windows and Android, and the dream would be able to, wherever your LaunchBox instance is, can you synchronize, or could we potentially synchronize saves between those different devices? And if you joined our stream on Tuesday, we actually had a sneak peek at a feature that's coming out in the next release, which is to do with game saves. So I'll hand it over to folks just to talk about the sort of vision for that, because it is very much a sort of early access kind of first release, and we definitely want to do a lot more with saves. So who wants to grab that one?
What do you think,
I think
Josh?
we could both take it, maybe. Oh, you're gonna look. I got to get the camera right.
I'm like over there. Yeah.
So obviously there's lots of things you can just do as is, right? We all have some kind of Google Drive or Dropbox or OneDrive or some kind of syncing tool right now, and it would be possible for you to go into all of your different emulators and change where the game saves go and put them into one of those. And then you could also go and set up another computer in the same way, and that is a possibility. And that's very similar to how I think some other options out there tend to work, right? Let's just put it into a folder and let some other smart thing move the data to some cloud service, or directly, if you're using like rsync or something like that, to another device. LaunchBox likes to pride itself on trying something a little bit different. Like, what could we do that's better than just Dropbox, right? That seems like a big ask. And so our approach right now is to think about, well, let's think about each individual game. Let's think about each individual emulator and how that emulator specifically works, and how this game has a different save file than that game, and what sort of future do we want for this sort of thing. So the question asks exactly what we're going to try to make work, right? If I could wave a magic wand and this feature was completely done, there would be the concept of user profiles, right? Me and my kid can play on the same device and have two different sets of game saves. And I could pick up my Odin 2 after playing on my Windows box, and automatically my stuff's over there as needed, per game, right? Very similar to, I think, the experience that you might get if you're like an Xbox exclusive fan and you're playing on the Xbox cloud and you go boot up a new Xbox, all of your stuff is just there. So that is the direction. of what we're taking this very, very beginning early access save management feature to be is to quote unquote just work the way that you think it should, which is I pick up a device, I start playing, and my stuff is already there without having to go through the rigmarole of hooking up an API key for my P drive or whatever it is. Just make it work because you're using LaunchBox.
Yeah, so that's like the where we would want to be, the vision, so to say. Um, I guess I can talk about a little bit of the challenges, or like, uh, I guess you could call it like, uh, I mean, you're asking for this. Here's now the world that you have to live in, uh, and the challenges surrounding that. Like, imagine you're playing, uh, I don't know, some PS1 game. I mean, this was a real scenario that I had. I was playing Final Fantasy IX on my computer and very much enjoying it. And then I got like a cheap little handheld device, and I'm like, wouldn't it be great if I could get this save file and have it like everybody had this thought at some point in your launchbox life. Wouldn't it be great if I could just like bring this file with me on this little tiny dinky handheld and be able to play uh, Final Fantasy on this device? And so I did that. I set up like I think sync thing where it was syncing my save files to this little device, and um, then I realized my Final Fantasy 9 on this little device was not performing well at all. Like it was terrible. It was just the worst experience. And I'm like, but you could use this like performant core version in RetroArch to make this game run well. I'm like, okay, that's great. I'll use this core. And it was playing Final Fantasy 9 great, but the save file was from another core and the save files were not compatible with each other. So I would just say just because like what we can do is we can get that file over there to that device, but what we can't do is make a crappy device good, and therefore save files are challenging in that respect. Like, hey, you want it on all of your devices, make sure all of your devices can play that exact same emulator or core between them if you wanted like the best experience. Anyway, there's challenges that we have to come up with solutions for that I think are on like in saying all that, we think we have a good vision, we think we have a good plan, and yes, that is the plan to take it all the way, right? If we have an end goal of like a lot of people go cloud saves, give us cloud saves. Um, that's the goal, but first we have to build a complete infrastructure to accommodate that goal, and that is the step one that is currently in beta right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you'll be able to get your hands on that very soon in terms of testing that out. And of course, that will continue to evolve. We know that people don't just play on one device anymore. So it's definitely something that we're thinking about. So the poll's up on the game. We'll leave that open just for another minute. I'm just going to address one more question before we jump in. I see a question in the chat here. And we haven't talked about this yet. It says, will the LaunchBox version for PC have video streaming? And there was another question in our AMA about this, and I'm assuming this is referring to being able to stream the sort of content that you have in LaunchBox. The question from the AMA was from Numaluma, and the question was similar vein, but they were asking about seeing would we have a smart TV app, which is a very interesting concept, similar to things like Xbox Game Pass on things like Amazon Fire Sticks. Being able to sort of remotely access your sort of LaunchBox collection and stream it to different devices. We did talk about this, and I think obviously that there's a huge sort of undertaking to dive into, and I don't think we personally wouldn't want to create our own implementation of streaming. I think there are plenty of applications out there that do an incredible job. Things like Moonlight and ways that you can technically stream from a PC or sort of stream from a LaunchBox instance. So probably not something that we, at least right now, will want to attempt ourselves, just because there's so many other people who are doing that better. But it is interesting seeing the sort of want for that. Obviously, LaunchBox being sort of tied to a device, maybe thinking about a way to access that a bit more easily and a bit more sort of, not shackled to your PC. Does that sound about right, guys?
Okay, yeah, there's some great services out there. Uh, Streaming services. Parsec is, one of my favorite ones. Um, I don't know if LaunchBox should be a competitor to them. I think we can use our time better uh, somewhere that's closer to the heart, closer to what we do, and really push other boundaries forward. And then at the same time, enjoy playing together through something like Parsec or Moonlight or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to jump into a game, and I will say the first one counts, because I can see a question in the
God.
chat here, and I know probably the most popular question of the entire stream is going to be, what is your stance on Linux and putting LaunchBox on Linux? I know we can certainly elaborate on that. So the pressure's on, guys. The loser is going to have to address that question. So I hope you're ready. Now the poll. I think the poll is completed, and you can tell how savvy I am with Twitch. I can't find the results. Let me quickly try and find
I
where
saw it
this
pop
poll
up. It
went.
was Miss Pac-Man was the winner.
Yeah, it looked like that was that had the most votes. Yeah, let me just see if I can.
You might have an advantage at me, Brian. I don't think I've played a Pac-Man game since
You never
I had
played
to put quarter.
Pac-Man?
There were so many better games for me. So I think the last time I played Pac-Man, it used an actual quarter. So we'll see.
Okay.
Don't say that you have like a Pac-Man cab behind you and it takes quarters. That's
No, you can see everything behind me. There's nothing.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played Miss Pac-Man, but I did play it quite a lot. I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna lose or something. I played it a lot at my and this is just randomly. My cousin owned a Miss Pac-Man cabinet. And so every time I go to his house, we would be playing Miss Pac-Man over and over again. But this was very, very, very long time ago.
Well, it's time to put those skills to the test. So, do you guys want to launch up Miss Pac-Man?
Let's do it. Let's
nice. Hopefully got our new scene up here. So I do have it on which platform? I have it
you
everywhere.
Can still
apparently.
hear all of us.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, I'm here, right? So Miss Pac-Man, or is it Pac-Man like that? All right, I've got a couple different versions, but I'm assuming we're doing the arcade version, which is...
I think the poll actually called out NES, actually.
Did it? No. Did it?
Oh, we can do arcade. We can do the arcade.
There it
Makes
is.
the most sense.
I love that. I love this comment. I do my laundry at home, but I still go to the laundromat down the street because it has Miss Pac-Man. That's amazing.
Zoom my scene in properly.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, apologies for the
let
bezels.
Let us know how the audio sounds.
Okay.
Just make sure you. I think whose game audio are we going to be hearing?
You're going to hear Josh's.
Supposedly mine, if I hooked it up right. If not, can you just like hum it or something behind the scenes?
I don't even remember what it sounds like. I think I know.
Because I'm honestly not hearing anything, like even from MAME itself. So I don't know. Oh, I need to put money in first.
That's
All right,
odd.
I forgot my quarter. I hear it now. It's yeah.
Fantastic.
I think you have a MAME. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, so person with the highest points.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, please. I'm hoping for like some good British soccer announcers. I kind of want to watch Brian's stream. Oh boy, I'm dead. I'm dead.
Game audio is very loud compared to your voices, so
I can't fix it right now. I'm so sorry. Oh, crap. Oh, all right, now I can fix it. All right, how do you get your mouse back? Am I gonna have to leave MAME to fix that? Might have to be after this game.
Sorry, it's sounding a little loud. The stream is coming from Josh's computer, so we can't interrupt a man while he's playing.
I'm gonna die just to fix this for you guys. We'll bring it down there. Oh, I didn't die. Wow. The AI on these ghost things, not so great.
How's that sounding, chat? Tell us if it's a bit more manageable or it needs to go down a little bit more.
Stupid strawberries harder to catch than the ghosts. Oh crap. It's neck and neck.
Yeah, not looking too bad. Brian's got one life up on you, Josh. Okay. After this game, we'll do a test with the volume. I think it's still a little bit loud, but we'll get that sorted afterwards. It could probably come down to about half of what it
Is there a pause button? No, it's arcade, you can't pause crap. Does MAME have a pause button?
It does, I think.
Yeah. Anyone know the shortcut for pausing MAME? It has like a configure menu, one of the F buttons. Yeah, it's a classic button. I think this Pac-Man was the first game that I got a full gamer score on the Xbox 360. Probably one of the first games I downloaded to Xbox Live.
I'm not doing good now.
I'm going to pull up the... we've got a nice... just so you guys know, we've got a nice mixture of games that these guys can partake in. Mostly between arcade, NES. We have an SNES in there. There is Mario Kart on the SNES. Ooh, that's in there. That's pretty fun. I mean, I'm not sure. LaunchBox doesn't have a HR department, but we might need to call in someone if Mario Kart is on the decks here. Could be
game over for me.
Could be very heated.
Not a big fan of Mario Kart. Oh,
no, as in the ability for it to just obliterate friendships and relationships. Oh, is that game over for you, Josh?
It is.
13,000 points.
Give or take.
Good game.
I have it still up. Yeah, 13-4. So
Canadian I think that's wins. It for me too. 18,340. There you go. Wait, that was better.
High scores is 42. Yeah, you beat me. I'm not. Like I said.
All right.
Awesome.
That's right, Joe.
Well,
Yeah. I
That's,
did
I
crank
love
the
that.
volume down.
Just like in
Hopefully
the
it's
real
better.
arcade where
Hopefully
you
it's
have
better.
to. Yeah. Do you want to do a quick test? Tell
Yeah,
us if
sure.
that sounds a bit better.
Uh, is that better to the stream?
Definitely
We'll,
looks better.
There you go.
Perfect. Way better. Fantastic. Well, okay. That's. Let me take note here of who wins each round.
What do we
And
win?
just quickly.
Is there going to be like a grand total? Add it all up.
Yeah. Okay, let me just get the next poll up.
All right. So
What do
what
we have
was
here?
what was the question again?
Linux.
So yes, so while I get this running, the question was Linux. So it's probably the most popular question throughout the week. Obviously, there are a lot of use cases when it comes to Linux, and I think a lot of people are looking at it from the Steam Deck perspective. But obviously, it's not just the Steam Deck. There are a whole other sort of bunch of use cases for Linux, and yeah, we've talked about this internally. It's not quite as straightforward as just like going on the Steam Deck. We want to make sure that it's done correctly. So I'll let the folks. Well, I'll let either of you. Either of you can jump in on this while I pull up this next.
It's all you,
poll.
Josh.
Oh, the loser has to do it. I thought it was the winner. I thought that was your prize.
Oh no.
So yeah, so I have a Steam Deck as well, and honestly, the reason I bought it wasn't because I'm like a huge fan of Valve and I want to give them more money than I already do. It was to be ready for working on a LaunchBox project where Linux was a possibility. So the long and short answer is yes. It is in the works. It's the plan. The unfortunate thing is we also have to juggle all of the other things that we want to do as a company, like building out those game save features and fixing fixing bugs and improving Android and doing other things. Right, the list of things that we as a company have to work on now has, not now, but it's been there for a while, Linux on the list. And so yes, we're building it. Can I give you a timeline? No, unfortunately. It's a lot different. 11 years ago, Jason chose to build LaunchBox using Microsoft.NET. At the time, it was a Windows Form project. And then, I don't remember how long ago, like half as long ago, it was all rewritten for WPF. And there's still a little bit of Windows Forms elements in there. And the running theory was always that WPF would eventually just work. Right? Microsoft a long time ago had said, "Hey, we're doing this," and you could see signs of it because they had created and acquired a company called Xamarin, which was creating a cross-platform version of .NET that had elements of WPF in it. They have since retracted from that position, and WPF is no longer on the roadmap for Microsoft to build. And so as we think about how do we get what people love about LaunchBox and BigBox and the things that we're building, we almost have to kind of step back to the very beginning of, well, what are we building from scratch, right? .NET does work on all the platforms, just not the UI framework. And so we're in the midst of experimenting with a number of different UI frameworks to make sure that what we pick can both do what the product does, but also allow for the overwhelmingly impressive theming engine that we have that not all of the front ends are able to carry because they've decided to implement something proprietary or something unique to like Qt rendering and so on and so forth. There's limitations with different UI frameworks, and we want to build something that impresses, right? We want LaunchBox to be like to deserve the accolades that you guys are throwing into chat and over the support over the last 11 years. So it's a long answer without like a specific answer, but yes, and quote unquote soon. I don't know what soon means though, but we are playing with it. More than one person on the team has Steam Deck, so that we can make sure that newer features that we're building are built in the direction of being cross-platform. It's a big lift for us as a team, and we're still relatively small team, and so we'd like to move as fast as you want us to, but we can only move as fast as we can based on the quality of delivery that we want to give you. It would be an easy thing for us to say, let's build a really light version of LaunchBox that only does X, Y, or Z. The trouble is, if I ask each and every one of you in the chat what that X and that Y and that Z should be, it might be different than everyone else on the chat, or what I think, or what Brian thinks, or what Andy thinks. And so we really need to pick the right X and the right Y and the right Z as we're building this out, so that when it does come out, it's something you're really interested in putting on your Steam Deck, or your random little Linux box that's, from the it's older than Ms. Pac-Man, right? It's just a computer that you have sitting around. So there's a lot that goes into this decision, as opposed to just saying, yeah, we're working on it, it's going to be out next week kind of thing. Nobody clip that.
And I'm actually I'm actually interested in what you guys have to say. We know that Linux itself means a lot of things, different things to a lot of people. Linux isn't like there's no Linux OS. That's not a thing, right? There's a lot of distros. There's a lot of reasons why people use Linux. So I guess that's the question to you guys. If a LaunchBox Linux did exist, what would you be installing it on, and why would you be using it? Maybe that's something you can ask yourselves as we look at this poll. And if you haven't clicked on the poll, it's on top of the chat, I think, on your guys' side on the top, and you can just vote for the next game that we play. Because
I think the
yeah,
clear winner for the next game is Dr. Mario
let's
on the
come
NES.
on, guys, change the game.
That's the only game that doesn't look bad through COVID eyes, right?
All right, it's Dr. Mario. Okay.
So while you guys pull that up, so yes, definitely let us know in the chat. Obviously, Linux devices can vary widely, and of course, as a platform in itself, it's something that if we can support it, it's good. But knowing what, just understanding what devices people primarily would end up using this on, just kind of helps us sort of denote the direction. And of course, we know that Steam Deck is probably a popular answer, but there are a lot of requests for other use cases. And I think those are the ones that we're actually quite interested in, because we want to know if there are better ways we can address those users. Just before we start the next game, just relating to that question, and then we'll jump into the next game, is talking about Josh, you made a fantastic transition as to a sort of light version of LaunchBox, and there was a couple of questions on this. This is taking more the aspect of performance rather than different OS support. So we have a question here from RetroGamer4423, which basically says, do you plan to make a light or sort of a limited version of LaunchBox? Now, this is specifically targeting performance, sort of a lighter version that maybe could run on less powerful hardware, or can sort of potentially performs better than the current version. There's another question here, which is talking about, can you sort of elaborate on any potential limiting factors of performance? And is there anything that we're doing to sort of try and improve the usability experience for users when it comes to performance? And so I think we can kind of bundle those together and just talk about performance as a whole, how we look at it, how we try to sort of troubleshoot and address it, and going forward, what we do when it comes to performance of LaunchBox. A nice easy question for one of you there.
Yeah, nice and easy. Enhance that.
Well, first I want to say that thank you so much for Super Fun Guy for starting this hype train and giving away 2 subs to 2 people there. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Um, to answer the question about performance, and I can't remember exactly what the
I thought we
exact
were gonna
question
play
was,
for it. I thought we
but
were gonna play for it.
oh, do we play for it? Yeah,
Well,
let's
I
do
mean, we can't, we don't have enough
that.
games to do one per question. So we'll do a couple of questions, then a game, then a
All
couple of
right.
questions.
Yes, we care about performance. Is that the question? Uh, we do things all the time, every single release that deal with performance, but performance is a very subjective term for users. Um, Sometimes what they're referring to is not really related to the technical term of performance, and maybe they just think something is a little janky or something, and uh, his animation doesn't sit well with them, and therefore it's bad performance, or they've got a, a monitor that has a high refresh rate, but well, big box isn't going in that refresh rate, and therefore performance. There's a lot of reasons why performance is a problem, and we like to identify what the real source of everything is and try to clean it up as best we can. There's a lot of work that can be done, but in the environment that we're working on, I can tell you that we are pushing the boundaries of this technology, uh, and I guess for the people that want performance but also want every single feature up that they want. What the problem is that we have to think really hard about which features that we introduce into a program like Launchbox, because it could end up having a negative impact on performance, and that has happened before in the past. And so you sort of have to really weigh and balance what we need to do. But on the brighter side, maybe Josh can talk about that side of things.
Yeah, so my history professionally has always been coding, and the way that I approach really most things in life, but especially coding, is I really like to dive deep. I don't want to code deep. I don't like coding in assembly, and I don't want to do C again ever in my life. But I really like to know how assembly works and how C works, and how on top of C we have .NET, and how on top of .NET we have WPF, and on top of that we have LaunchBox, right? There's all these layers that go into all technology, and I really do appreciate and dive into those sorts of things. So hey, we hit the 10 out of 10 subscribers. Anywho, so I do like to dive into performance related things. And it was just the other day that I was asking Brian about a specific feature of like, hey, this looks like it's adding, X amount of time as the app launches. Like, can you tell me like why this exists, and what about it? And those sorts of questions I'm going to be having a lot more internally as we kind of look to the future. So not saying that Jason didn't care about performance, and not saying the team didn't care about performance, but I am saying that I do, right? And I'm going to focus a lot of the time that I have to dedicate to coding of just like looking and trying to figure things out. Like, how should we store the metadata, right? You may not know this, but on your computer, if you have LaunchBox, you basically have an entire copy of the games database. It's just sitting there on your computer. And that comes with a huge performance gain, because you can do a lot of local things without having to talk over the wire to a server. But it comes with the cost of, now there's a big file on your computer that LaunchBox needs to load up once in a while, or all the time, to make certain things faster. So short answer, yes, it's as with what Brian said, it's always been a consideration. We want it to work really well in all of the environments that you guys have. But I like that kind of stuff. Like, it really inspires me to look like, how can I shave time off in these certain things? And so do expect more of that sort of thing going forward. And especially as we think about, like we said before, having to potentially rewrite some portions of LaunchBox to work in different operating systems. that is a really good opportunity to look at, be like, okay, well, this is how it's been done for 11 years because it works, but can we make it work but faster? So more to come, as with all improvements, but I think the direction is quite positive for those who are concerned by that.
And
Fantastic.
before we jump into the game, let me try to answer some of your guys' questions here that are just going by. How do you search in Big Box? You can have the way that I'm doing it. I mean, you can go back and there's like a search button inside of the system menu. I created a search key, hotkey, brings up this guy, and you can use a controller to go around, type in your game. I'm just using a keyboard because it's faster, and that's how you do it. The next question was, I guess that's the same question. Is there an on-screen keyboard for typing on a controller? Yes, I just showed that. Let's see what else. I remember there's one more question here.
I wonder if we can clarify. So I think I may have misunderstood one of the questions earlier, when we were talking about the game streaming side. They say here, so what I meant was about video streaming was about the snap of a game video for Android. So you can use a YouTube link. You can use a YouTube link now. Will this be available in LaunchBox for PC?
Oh, video streaming in LaunchBox. So we did recently introduce video streaming of the YouTube links on Android. And will something like that come to PC? I do think that we might do that. We haven't heavily discussed it. We would have to look at the pros and cons and all that good stuff. The problem with something like this, so we introduced it over on Android first because that's a good testing bed, and we can see how much people embrace a feature like that, because it will come at a cost. There is always a cost to a feature like that. There's a number of things that we are out of our control, one of which is YouTube itself. If YouTube makes any changes to their stuff, our integration would break like that. There's a cost that just continuously needed to download videos as you're navigating through your stream instead of the videos just like being there. There's and then like, how long are you willing to wait? Are you willing to wait 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 15 seconds for a video to load after the game has sat there? Like, as a user, what is that time where you're like, no, this doesn't work? Because we can't control how fast your internet is to the YouTube servers. We can't control like a lot of external factors. And so it sounds like a great plugin idea where the plugin can be easily fixed or updated separate from the application, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers that question at least a little bit. The two other questions I'm seeing here are,
I mean, I think at this point Brian's trying to stall from playing Dr. Mario, don't we think?
No, hold on. I'm just trying to answer everyone's questions in the chat.
Do we have to get through everyone's question now? Are you sure?
Everyone. Okay, the last two. Recommend RetroArch? Yes. Does a faster PC make LaunchBox work faster? That is a loaded question. It's not so much as a faster PC, because that could be anything. SSDs, definitely a plus. And just a fast, nice, cool PC is would work fine. For most emulation, you don't even need a video card or anything like that. Would not really be beneficial. LaunchBox and Big Box, they're not games. They're not built on gaming engines. You don't really like heavily utilize your video card. And so yeah, that's it. I think an SSD is like
if you want to put Brian on his soapbox, ask him about like how you store your ROMs and whether or not they should be zipped up, or whether they should go over here, over there. There's a lot of things that go into a slow feeling LaunchBox, and zipping up an ISO and putting it on your external hard drive makes it feel real slow.
Yeah, if your LaunchBox feels slow, it might not be the program. It might actually be the way that you've configured the program to operate. And so if you're looking at somebody else streaming LaunchBox and you're like, wow, that's actually really fast, and your LaunchBox is slow, that's probably why. But yeah, that could take all day. I could probably do an entire stream just on that. But instead, I guess we should play
Listen, Dr. Mario.
Dr. Mario.
Face your fears, Brian.
Ah,
Is
here we
it
go.
not your favorite game? I mean,
Oh,
personally,
geez, I still have-
I adore Dr. Mario.
I still have my plugin installed. Hold on.
Blow into the microphone. Oh,
for those who are wondering what that is, who may have just wandered in, Josh did a fantastic plugin on stream where you have to blow into your microphone in order to actually start the game.
okay. How do you want to handle the settings?
I don't know how. Like, I feel really
think-
confident in my Dr. Mario
I think
ability.
it's probably better to go for a higher level, and then it's whoever dies first, because otherwise you're going to
5?
be here for a long time.
10?
No, I'm thinking
What do you wanna
more
do?
like 15 or something. Like
No,
20.
no,
is
no.
intense.
10.
Or like
10 it
10,
is.
yeah, 10.
10 it is.
10.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
All
high
right,
speed if
all
you're
right.
feeling
Oh,
adventurous.
let's just do medium. Yeah.
All right.
Before I leave the music on, how is the sound of my RetroArch coming through? I can just turn it off. Because if I keep it on, I'm gonna have to go with chill, because that's my beat here. All right, we're doing it.
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let us know if the sound is good. Okay, fantastic. Yeah, chill was always my Dr. Mario
Oh
theme of
crap! I
choice.
screwed up so fast. Do we get 2 lives?
Yeah, go
I
on. You get
I was
two
trying to go.
lives.
I was trying to go too fast.
Piper Call
Oops.
says we need a theme masterclass. Well, if you haven't managed to catch it, Brian here did a fantastic theme workshop for the Game Discovery Center, which you can watch the replay on our Twitch channel. So definitely check that one out. It was a good time. It was focused on the Game Discovery Center, which is a newer part of Big Box and an area that hasn't really had time to sort of be implemented into a lot of the popular community themes out there. But having watched that stream, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it to tie it into your themes. So yeah, definitely check that out if you haven't managed to. I see some people here talking about CHD as well. Personally, a preferred choice for sort of keeping hard drive space down, any sort of disk-based games, as long as the emulator supports the format. And most of the ones do, like Sega CD, PS1, Dreamcast, PSP, PS2. You can get some nice space savings when it comes to CHD. In terms of will we release these videos on YouTube, I think we're looking at this. I think we've got the recordings of these. Obviously, they're available on Twitch for now, but I think we are going to upload some of them onto YouTube. And also interesting, a lot of people did contribute to when we were talking about the Linux devices. There's definitely a lot of Steam Deck support, which is one of the primary use cases, but it sounded like the other Linux use case is a standalone sort of home box. So a standalone sort of machine, maybe I'm assuming that's hooked up to a TV, but without all of the bloat that is Windows, being able to have a nice sort of lean LaunchBox instance that might be running on a Linux OS. Yep, CHD saved me so much space. Yep, I agree.
Well,
These guys are doing well. So you're still on your first life, are you, Brian?
yes.
Mine didn't count.
I mean,
I'm
here's
just
a
gonna
question
say...
for the chat. So I historically have always tried to match Dr. Mario hills vertically. It's always been like, four down. And then I realized that you could actually do it horizontally as well. And I found that actually really kind of helps in sticky situations. If you can sort of, knock out the underneath of a big chain, like that big pile you've got on the left there, Brian. I see 3 blues, and I'm thinking if you can drop a nice sort of 2 blue on the side of it, that could help you out of that situation.
Yeah, things are going really fast here. Okay.
So, tell us about Linux implementation while playing Dr. Mario. See how the answer might change.
I don't think that I can answer any questions right now.
I see a good question here, and this was also in the AMA, so I'll answer this one. I want it for the Legends Ultimate Cab, and we saw someone ask about this. Maybe it's actually the same person, if it's if that's you. But let me quickly pull up my question list. Oh no, it is a different person. We had a question here about any considerations to expanding LaunchBox to systems like @Games, Legends, Ultimate. So this is currently there are options. Their options are stock or arcade, Legends Unchained. So obviously, the more there's a whole bunch of different platforms. Ideally, we would want to be on. Obviously, we talked about Linux being a big one. With these ones, they're definitely more niche, and I think it's really just a question of what the user base of that would for those types of platforms would be. I can probably say it's probably not something there's a particularly high priority right now. But as these things become more popular, and if there is in the future a good use case to go after some of these other platforms, then I think it's something that we're definitely open to all sorts of platforms. Linux obviously being the very sort of hot, popular one right now.
Technically, you won, Brian, because I screwed up earlier, but I'm just gonna leave this up for the rest of the stream. Don't mind me.
Is that you beating the game or something?
Well, level 10, yeah.
Oh, well, I did not beat level 10.
So,
What
Okay,
was the question?
Oh no, there wasn't a question. Although I do see a new one here, so maybe someone can answer this while I pull up the next poll. This is from Andrew Speck. Says, I want to go back to the question about save syncing. My question is more about working with emulator developers. Emulators on Android need to change the save directory so you can access them. So DuckStation was an example where it's hard to sync it. So, as we embark on this potential journey of save syncing, are we going to do our own implementation? Are we sort of working with the existing emulators out there to make it work with their existing emulators?
If we had
working,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, either way. So if we had a choice, we would lean on the emulators, right? We don't want to reinvent a wheel that doesn't need to be reinvented. And DuckStation as an emulator works just fine, right? It does all of the things an emulator needs to do. It just has a gap here. Now, the vast majority of these emulators are open source. And I can't speak specifically to the DuckStation set of developers, but not all open source projects are open in the sense that they actually want your feedback, or they want your pull requests, or they want your code changes. We have in the past, I won't name names, but submitted some changes to some projects that either went ignored or rejected for a variety of reasons. And that's just the nature of working in open source communities. You have to play into the community, and if you just sort of drop in real quickly, sometimes that can go not as welcome as others. But many projects are run really quite successfully and would welcome that sort of thing. And so if we did see an opportunity to improve one of these projects, then we most certainly would. We know that Android specifically has a lot of restrictions because of the way the operating system runs, of what kinds of apps can access what kinds of data folders. And as you all know, LaunchBox is sideloaded as an APK, which is given different sets of privileges as those that are downloaded through the Play Store. And if we're thinking of beyond Android, iOS has even higher restrictions. And so where possible, we're going to do what we have to make it work. And if not, then unfortunately, we won't be able to do much about it, because I don't think that we're up for the task of creating our own copies or forks of these emulators to have to maintain them on top of everything else. So long answer to a short question. We'll do what we can. We'll do what we have to, but there are limits of what we can accomplish given the nature of the way that some of these projects are run. You know, if and there are some closed source projects out there that you can't even get a hold of the developer. You know, big PMU is Rich Whitenhouse, good guy. Get a hold of him, gonna be hard, right? Because he's just a dude doing this for fun. Conveniently, his project is really well organized, and we don't have any trouble accessing things in it. But there are projects where that's going to be a limitation, especially on those really locked down OSs like Android. And perhaps that's where some of the interest of Linux is coming to be, because all these handhelds, they're running either Android, the smaller ones, the cheaper ones, they're all running either Android or Linux. And Linux just naturally has a lot less restriction put on it as to what applications can do, depending on how they get on there. I hope that answered the question. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's that we do our best. Like no point. Yeah, I'm just gonna regurgitate what you said. No point in reinventing the wheel. Do our best to. We're completely open to working with whoever. If we end up needing to need something special for a particular emulator, but it's not something that we're really uh, going to host or fork our own like open source projects or something like that, and you would not want us to do that anyway, because it would stall development of pretty much everything. That's one way to stretch yourself way too thin. And yeah, but
Yeah.
as far as I'm assuming this is more related to the saves question, we'll do our best to implement it in a way that we have the ability to do so, and would love to just in the ideal world just have everything working for everybody, even for us, to just like have it work. That would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to let people know, some were asking about the giveaways. We mentioned this earlier, but for anyone who's wondering, obviously the giveaways closed this week, and hopefully we'll be sorting through those sometime next week. We can't say exactly when you'll be notified, but of course, I would say just keep an eye on your email if you entered the main giveaway, which is where you sort of supplied your entry through Gleam. For the forum giveaways for the Steam keys, you'll be DM'd on the forum as well. So definitely make sure you've got notifications on there. And that's
If you
where you'll be
haven't voted
contacted for
yet,
any Steam
guys,
keys.
the vote is there still. You can cast your vote right now on the top of the chat and vote for any of the games. Tapper, any of them.
Tapper or Tapper.
Or any of them.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to Galaga. I hope that doesn't win. I say that. See, reverse psychology, Brian. That's what you got to try. Don't vote for Tapper.
Don't vote for
Well,
Tapper.
let's go for another question while we wait for the vote to miraculously swing in another direction.
In 1 second, come on.
Looks like Tapper won. All right. The second place counts, right?
Yeah, if only that was the case.
I mean, it's up to you guys. The people have spoken. Do you want to go against the vote, or
let's
No.
do it? Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I have a sense that all the arcade games you're going to beat me, and all of the console games
maybe
beat you.
It's a possibility.
I assume it's this one, Galaga. All right. Like, what's a good high score, so I know how badly I do? 150,000. That sounds big. Okay.
Yeah. There's no way. There's no way.
I wonder how many people think it's broken when it does this at the beginning. Is it broken?
I hope nobody.
Yeah. There's
That's
something.
just what they do when you turn it on.
Yeah, I'm very curious as to the sort of checks that it's doing. Someone much smarter than me can tell me like what exactly that's doing. I imagine it's some sort of copy protection or it's checking for something, right? But interesting
It's
how
just
that
the
works.
checks that happens when the cabinet turns on. But imagine these cabinets don't really turn on often. I think they might have turned it off
Yeah,
every night and turned it on, but some places might not even have done that.
yeah, yeah.
So what was the
We
question
take
that
it
we're
off
shooting
granted
for
now,
here?
but
What's the question we're fighting for?
you'll have to wait and see. You'll have to.
Oh, well, I think you told us what they were beforehand. No, that's fine. I'm gonna do poorly, so I'm excited to
Quick chat.
watch Farron
Someone
win.
someone give us a tough question on the fly in the chat.
Let's do this. Let's do this. All right.
All
All
right.
right.
And of course, let us know
One
how
life.
the
Let's do
sound
this.
is as well. Okay, and they're off. It's funny because I'm not getting the game audio through my side, so it's kind of weird doing a sports commentary without all the sort of cheering crowd. I need like a soundboard of like you know.
Well, the MIDI music
audience applause in the background and things.
I don't record. I don't think you need to hear the music. You can imagine
a lot of
limitations.
beeps and bloops.
Yes. This might be the best I've ever done. Oh man. How many less?
I'm going to address a question while you guys are fighting for your lives in the avoiding the difficult questions. While you guys are actively fighting to answer all the difficult questions, I'm going to take the easy questions. But this was interesting, and also just because I'm personally a huge retro achievements guy. So we had a question here, which was about retro achievements. Pretty straightforward. Let me just find out who it was from. It was from Super David. Hope I said that right. And it was basically, I love achievements, same as me, and I love old school retro achievements. Is there any way to make LaunchBox show both hardcore and regular achievement scores up at the top? So in LaunchBox right now, we give you the retro score, which is retro achievements way of, I guess, calculating your sort of overall score based on hardcore and softcore. And if you're wondering what those are, yes, this is a PG-13 stream. We're talking about hardcore is playing with things like save states and rewind disabled. The idea is to emulate the original experience. And if you have softcore turned on, you can use those features, but you just get a different sort of point calculation. Now, we were talking about this recently, and the thing with retro achievements is there is so much that has actually changed since that initial implementation. They've done some really great things with things like the beat-in framework. They have their own leaderboards as well for specific games, not just high scores, but they have leaderboards for all sorts of stuff. And we would really love to get back to that at some point. So I will say that with retro achievements, there's a lot more we can do with that. And so in theory, it's possible.
Oh my
yes,
gosh.
in theory, there's the possibility to show different types of scores. But I think what's more likely is we'll actually look at sort of adding a lot more functionality from retro achievements in the future, just because they've added so much great stuff on their end, and we really want to take advantage of that. So hope that makes sense. Hope that clears up that question.
All right, it's all you. You kicked my butt so hard.
Wait, what was your score?
Zero, like close to zero. That was 15,000.
What? Oh, I'm getting all distracted now.
That's my goal.
I'm almost done, guys. Don't worry.
Right.
This is an interesting question about profiles, and I guess the use case here is you want to have a single LaunchBox. You want to share the sort of library, but you want users to be able to maintain individual aspects. I'm assuming that's relating to things like playlists and any sort of user preferences to be associated with a profile, but then have the actual instance be separate. I mean, I wonder, is there a way to do this right now in terms of, obviously, if you were to host your ROM location, you to symlink your media locations into a central place, but then you have an individual instance, or am I suggesting something that is highly unrecommended? Maybe now is not the time. Still focusing.
Very focused.
Almost done.
Yeah, that's also a good point about parental controls, and yeah, it'd be nice if hidden, for example, the ability to hide games. It's not just a sort of toggle for visibility, but is actually to there's actually some control over that. So probably would tie into being able to have some sort of user profile and then being able to narrow things down based on that.
And I think if we were to work on something like that, so content rating is certainly one way that you can filter things. There's a lot of games that don't have content ratings on, don't have them at all, and your family values may disagree with what those content ratings are as well. But at the end of the day, the idea is I would like a subset of my overall collection using whatever criteria I have personally chosen to use for my family. To provide that restriction. So that piece of functionality kind of already exists through playlists, right? It would be conceivable to create a playlist that identifies these are the kinds of things that I want to make available in this situation. The part that we don't have, of course, is please limit the entire LaunchBox experience to just this one playlist. Everything else should work the way that it normally works, but please limit it to this playlist. And so when I think of profiles, I think of it in that way of like, what features can we take advantage of that we have that work really well, like playlists, and how can we build what's missing? Like we just talked about the game save thing earlier. That is a key component of a playlist. The fact that Brian here is going to get a high score on Galaga that's going to show up on the community leaderboards, that should go to him and not his probably going to be very prodigious child with respect to arcade games. So there's a lot that goes into what makes a profile question. And so you'll notice, like with the save management feature, it's the first time I think in LaunchBox history that we're using the term early access, right? It's a way for us to communicate to you that it's a feature that we're not just experimenting with, but it's not complete. It's unfinished, but it does do something useful. Historically, I think there's a lot of motivation to wait until you're done, right? Let's make a complete feature before we push it out. And so something like a profile could be a really good candidate for an early access style feature of like, oh, it integrates well with saves, right? But that's it. Now it has playlists, but that's it. Now it does high scores, but that's it. And so we can kind of iterate those features out. And you got to die soon because I'm running out of things to say.
I'm
about profiles.
I'm very close to dying. Don't worry.
Okay, so I'm going to put up the poll with the next game while we wait. And Josh, I'll ask you another question from the AMA here. But
awesome.
The next game poll is now up. There may
there you go.
Be a sneaky addition that's snuck into the latest poll. So, Josh, I'm going to ask you a question. So this came from. Let me just find my question list. So this is a pretty long question. It was from King Cricket, but the gist of this was talking about what is our plan for different storefront integrations. So obviously right now we do support certain storefronts. There are certain other storefronts that the integrations are not as seamless. And the example given here is things like Microsoft and Xbox Game Pass. Now, there are some limitations in terms of their API and how they sort of handle things like that. But the gist of the question is, what do we want to do with additional storefronts? And maybe you can touch on this in relation to
Mhm.
the plugin manager and how we see that when it comes to supporting additional storefronts.
It'd be a little repetitive, but we talked about during the Twitch stream about coding a plugin. So LaunchBox has always had the concept of plugins, right? And it was designed in the way that it was largely to allow the community to tweak their LaunchBox to work the way that they want to, or for talented plugin developers to create something cool and share it with the community. It was a tool for the community to make the community's usage of LaunchBox better, so that LaunchBox could move forward under your own motivations. The newer plugin manager is going to eventually help with community-based plugins, but it's initially very selfish for us. It's a way for us to isolate portions of our code to be independent of the rest of the application, right? It's an isolated little piece of code that we can, I don't know, make sure is cross-platform or is highly performant. And we know that this little plugin is coded the way that we want it to be coded. But it also gives us this really big benefit of we can fix it outside of our release cycle. Next week sometime, you're all going to get an email saying that 13.16 goes out if all goes well and the beta is clean. And it may be another month or a month and a half or two before 13.17 comes out, just because of the way that we have to run our development lifecycle on our side. But maybe 2 weeks after release, the Dolphin integration plugin needs a fix, or the Games Discovery Center plugin needs a fix. We'll be able to push those out whenever we have them ready, as opposed to waiting for a big release, which is how we run things. So back to the question about storefronts. Right now, storefronts are sort of baked in to LaunchBox, as with all of its features. There's some code somewhere that says, please add these storefronts to a list, and this is how this storefront works, and that's how that storefront works. And so our step one in answering this question is, well, let's just make those plugins, please. For the love of sanity as a developer, let's put the Xbox plugin, Xbox code into a plugin. Let's put Steam into a plugin. Let's put GOG and Amazon and so on and so forth. So that if I decide personally I want to add itch for whatever reason, I'm insane and I like a bunch of free indie games and I want to use itch, maybe I could code a plugin for that, but it also lets us as a team fix the Xbox thing if it's not working the way that it needs to. So again, step one, turn everything into a plugin as best we can, so that step two can be very easy, not very, but much easier ways for us to introduce new storefronts, or much easier ways of fixing existing storefronts, sort of independent of the big 6 to 12 times a year dump of a bunch of code that we call a release. So at a high level, that's the answer is yes. It's on the radar. It's on our list of things we want to pluginize, if that's a word. And it might even be one of the next ones. I think we're competing between we're competing between like badges and plugins as the next sort of plugin manager, or badges and storefronts as the sort of next thing that we might pluginize. We still have some work to do with the save states and the emulator plugins and some of those other things. But yeah, so short answer is we are going to be expanding the ability for us to support a wider variety of storefronts while giving us more flexibility in fixing the ones that break. The way that most of those work is through backdoor channels. It's not like Xbox gives us a nice API that says, here's a way to get the list of the games, and here's the way to launch them, and here's the way to make your front end work with our stuff. As though they don't want you to buy an Xbox themselves or to use the Xbox app. And so most of the storefronts aren't super friendly to tools like ours. And so we have to do some clever things to make those work, which means they can break, which means they don't work the way that we want them to, because we have to sort of fight our way through what that storefront gives us from a developer standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next game poll has closed, and will you look at that?
Was it just Tapper versus
Tapper?
Tapper
versus Tapper? There's a bit of cheating going on here, but it looks like Tapper snuck its way back into the poll. It is the next game, so feel free to boot that up. No
Yeah.
love for Fibbage on
Gladly.
Windows with
that's
zero
okay.
votes.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go and look up
Nobody
what that
likes
game is.
Fibbage, eh?
I started life as a consultant,
And,
so I'm just naturally gifted at lying. All right. Well,
thanks,
if you
guys, for the. We're glad that you're finding the sort of our ramblings insightful.
if you thought Farron's performance at Galaga was impressive, wait till you see this one.
That was more impressive than I thought. I haven't played Galaga in a long time, although I did have that game as a kid.
I have no chance here as well. Again, another arcade game, but I'll give it a go. I'm gonna enjoy watching these people drink.
Let's do this.
Yelling at the cheerleaders for distracting me. Can you give him a really hard question while we're playing? I think that would really help me out.
It would.
He's gonna watch him
Alright,
for
let's do
strategy
this.
tips. All right, so he waits for this guy to come back out. Why?
Here you go. Here's the perfect question. It says, what do you plan to implement in the near future in LaunchBox? What priorities? So, Farron, basically, give us the entire 5-year LaunchBox roadmap, please, while trying to play an arcade game.
I didn't even hear the question.
Of course he didn't. Of course he
What were you saying? I think my headphones are breaking up.
didn't. But just to, we can touch on that probably afterwards when these guys are a little bit more focused in terms of some of the short-term priorities. We've obviously talked about some of the larger-term initiatives, and if you're joining midway through, we did touch on the question of Linux and what we're thinking about in terms of supporting additional OSs like that going forward. We also touched on our thinking regarding our sort of save management feature, which is going to be coming out very soon, and what that means. You know, this is a sort of early access and first phase of what we want to do with creating a LaunchBox kind of ecosystem. We know that people are not just playing on single devices anymore, so it is an important area that we think we can have a good impact. And exactly, there you go. It's the interview question. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Hopefully having playing Tapper. Playing Tapper on your Steam Deck? Maybe? I mean, technically,
I don't know.
You can already, but... Yeah, the track music of Tapper was just fantastic. That's a good question. I mean, what do you guys think is the most irresistible arcade cabinet that you just couldn't not walk past? I think for me it was probably Time Crisis. There's something about just like, it's mostly like the gun cabinets where, yeah, that, or also more recently, I got swooped up here. I was in Japan and got to check out the Luigi's Mansion arcade cabinet.
Nice.
Honestly, not a great game, but that cabinet itself is pretty fantastic. It's got like a little booth that you sit in, and I think you get like little mini like vacuum controllers. That thing is pretty sweet.
For me, Dungeons and Dragons, any of those arcade games, I could not walk past those.
Probably like Altered Beast or something. What are they called? Yeah, Altered Beast, I think, was a good one for me.
Yeah, Tricks the TMNT Turtles in Time. Fantastic. Did anyone ever play, speaking of a recent trip, did anyone ever play an arcade game called Bishi Bashi? It's this like obscure arcade cabinet where you basically have to do a bunch of mini games for like mashing buttons. I actually played that recently. I went to I was in Hong Kong recently for to see a friend, and the worst smelling like arcade room I've ever been to in my life. Like there was no ventilation in there. It was basically just walking into a cloud of cigarette smoke. Great little place, but like it had like amazing like King of Fighters cabinets, and they have this one called Bishi Bashi, which is basically like you basically just like button mashing on these controls on these little buttons for mini games, but it was good fun.
Heard of it.
And guess speaking of obscure cabinets, probably the best one I saw. I don't know what it's called, so maybe someone can tell me. But it literally has a mini table on a hinge, and you know those arcades where you have to like punch the punching bag with as much force as you can, and it gives you the score. Like you have the mallet and you have to hit the you hit the thing, and it sort of tells you how powerful you are. So this one is you have to flip the table. So on screen, you're like an angry office worker, and you have to basically flip the table with as much force as you can, and it gives you a score based on that. Maybe someone can tell me what that one is, because I've been trying to find it. I saw it once, and I've been trying to find that cabinet again for years.
I also couldn't walk past the 6-player X-Men arcade. That one was insane.
Ooh. Chipster says the Star Wars cockpit arcade. That one sounds fun. Yeah, X-Men double screen cabinet and 4+ Simpsons. Yeah, I replayed that through Simpsons recently on with Retro Achievements. I mean, yeah. Notice how this game is going surprisingly longer than our previous one.
It's going very long.
But I mean, props to both of you. It's I'm gonna pull up another question from our AMA in the meantime. Let's have a look. Yep, Smash TV Attract. Welcome, Spaghetti Cat, into the chat. Good evening, Retro Youth. What are you doing up at this hour?
Okay.
Getting there. Ah.
Yeah, it was always the experience of being deafened as you walked past. I think DDR was probably the worst or the best offender in that regard of walking past the cabinet and having to check your ears afterwards. Considering this game is going to go, we're probably going to be here for a while. Let's jump into some,
I think I'm
some
done.
questions.
I'm almost done.
Okay, I'm going to answer this one. I thought this was quite interesting, which was, do you plan to add encyclopedic features, for example, cataloging more websites for games, cheat codes, game characters, things like that? So what this question is relating to, it's additional kind of information that is relating to the game. So right now, for example, we have a few fields that are maybe a little bit underutilized for things like a YouTube URL, for a Wikipedia URL. And I've often thought this would be really nice to, it's not just the game and sort of the manual, but there's a whole bunch of other sort of media and, information that you can attach to a game. So they're referring to things like websites that are specific to that game. It could be sort of certain hubs that categorize certain parts of the game. So, for example, like I know Retro Achievements do quite well with their hubs with characters. So it'd be great if you could open your collection and say, well, actually, I'm in the mood for some, let's say, some Mario today. Let's see, these were the games where he's playable. Maybe these are some of the games where he makes a cameo. So I'm want to check out some Easter eggs. So I'm going to go and find the games where Mario makes a cameo. And I think it boils down to the point of all of these data points are technically possible. It's on us to implement them, but then it's on the community to actually fill those things out. It would be, we would just want to make sure that we implement sort of useful things and useful metadata in a way that the community can then easily go and fill out. But yeah, I mean, especially with things like the Game Discovery Center. I mean, I know we talked about this internally. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have some sort of release like visual timeline of the games in a series, for example, or looking at like we said, things where games where specific characters make certain cameos and things like that. Yeah, if I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in with some more information, but it's definitely something that we're looking at, but we're just sort of finding the best way to make it easy for the community to contribute to those areas.
And yes, I
Well, there you
did.
go.
I did beat you by like a whole 1,000 points. So we basically tied.
You did, eh?
52
50
250.
something? Nice. Okay. So that means I have to answer this question. Was that the question? Or is there a different question?
You can elaborate if you want on the encyclopedic features, or we can jump onto another question.
Sure.
So I can start a little bit. For me, we're not just running one database, right? We're running a million of them. So we have what every individual wants to do with their local copy of LaunchBox and BigBox, and the data that they want to attach to their local collections, and the data that they want to curate and do all of the things on their stuff. When people say that they've spent 1,000 hours configuring their whatever, a lot of that work is this stuff, right? We also have one really big database that we really like to keep in mind as we're thinking about what data we want to capture and track and store and use, and that it's the games database, the LaunchBox games database, our version of that. And we've been doing, honestly, a lot of conversation internally recently about where does that go? Like, what does version 2 or 3 or whatever we're on of the games database look like with respect to what sorts of information should we put in there? And those sorts of ideas are definitely on that list of conversation. It goes well beyond that with all of the things that we're considering. There's a lot of information we could track about it. Andy, you're 100% right. We do need to rely on the community to help provide a good chunk of that information, but we also need to provide a really good framework for storing and utilizing that data. And so when we think about, well, wouldn't it be really cool to track, I don't know, which characters run a game, for example? It's not as simple as just adding some fields to LaunchBox, because we also want to acknowledge the fact that, well, maybe that data should be shared, which means we should put it on the games database first and then filtered back down. Or at least that's my take on it. So yes, we want to track all the things. We want to become the single best source of game information in the world, and we're pretty close to that, if not already there. But we also want you individually to track the things that are important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, central place for cheat codes. That would be cool. Yeah, just LaunchBox has the sort of launch pad, forgive the pun, for any information that relates to that game would be nice.
The only thing I would bring up
for votes in the meantime.
The next poll is up, and definitely take advantage of that. The only thing I'd bring up for that one question is, like Josh was saying, we've talked internally quite a lot about all of the, like, what is a games database 2.0, and so all of the things that you're wanting, we're wanting as well. So, like, cheat codes, what does that look like? Characters, what does that look like? Like, all that sort of thing. Controls, what does that look like? And more. Like, we've talked a lot about almost everything, and so really it's just about sifting through that, trying to figure out the best way to actually do this that doesn't paint us in a corner, and just time.
Yeah.
So
So Brian,
yes, yeah, we're definitely looking at that.
that's a good
Yes.
segue. Given your smack talk in Tapper and the fact that you actually lost that round, I think
Yeah.
you can answer these next questions,
Someone's been
which is
practicing.
which is relating to the games database. We got a couple of questions here, and it follows that trend of adding additional data to the games database. So one
Yeah.
here from Mr. Decat, which talks about are there any plans to add additional platforms to the database? So they bring up things like um, J2ME, Brew, Symbian. Uh, there's a lot of examples here, but basically platforms that don't exist in the database. And then we have a similar question from the new classics, which talks about adding things like additional rating systems. So things like Peggy, Cero, things like that. So metadata that doesn't currently exist in the database. And maybe you can shed some light on like our thought process when it comes to adding that metadata, because it's not a straight, it's not a sort of, we think very carefully about what we add there. So maybe you can talk us through that.
Yeah, so the way that platforms was set up, whether fortunately or unfortunately, that is subjective, but uh, we ourselves are sort of the gatekeepers of which platforms get added into the games database. And one of the issues is that once we add them, they can't really be unadded easily. Like if we made a mistake, there's no like off button. There's no like take backsies. I take it back. Uh, they're sort of set in stone, or else we might break something very crucial inside of LaunchBox that might be able to be fixed in the future. But that's just not the world we live in right now. So I think back in the day, I know that. Jason was I guess he asked the community which platform should be on this new games database that we have, and we just sort of accepted everything, and everything went into the database. Some of the things questionably maybe shouldn't have been added as a platform. I'm not going to name any names, but there are some platforms that probably are like duplicated in other platforms and stuff like that. Uh, and we have all these platforms, and yes, we've added platforms. Last year, we added a whole bunch, uh, but every single one, basically, what I'm saying is that we have to like basically stop what we're doing and start researching all of these platforms that you guys want to make sure that a is it actually a platform, or are we basically adding like IBM 386 and IBM 486. Are those two platforms? Are they one platform? Are they even a platform? Is hardware a platform, or is software a platform? Where are those standards that we have to abide by? So really, uh, it's a case by case basis. We treat it very seriously, and once we do flag something that we want to add, we will add it, and then you know live in the consequences of that decision. What was the second question?
Well, they were relating to the same thing about adding data to the database. One was talking about platforms, the other was talking about um, uh, new rating systems like Zero and things like that. Because right now we just have ESRB. I guess maybe you can tell people who don't
Yeah,
know, like
like
what is the best way to actually request those types of things? Is there a specific place on the forum? Maybe like what is the best place people can sort of request those additions?
either on Bitbucket, we've curated. I mean, it is old, but we've curated a lot of requests through there, and we've uh, put into the program a whole lot of stuff that's been in there. And we definitely will look at it if you make a request through there. Uh, Forums, just as much. You can have a we read comments all the time on the forums, respond to them. If it's a good idea, we'll always keep it in mind, and we always have a giant list of stuff that we have in the background. As far as specifically different rating systems, uh, yeah, I would not mind doing that. Right now, we do have ESRB uh, as a rating system inside of LaunchBox. I think that's what we call it. Same in Big Box, and ESRB is something that really was only in North America. At the same time, It's like it's on the list, but not like the highest priority for us. It would be a lot of work. We could add it to the game's database and then somehow figure out how we're going to add it into LaunchBox without too much confusion for users. And at the same time, I'd almost look at even the ESRB rating, and we fondly remember it, but it's not really used that often anymore. There's like too many games for that organization to keep up with rating them. And so
Right.
most games
Yeah.
in your library, if like, I don't know, 80% of your games in your library are just not rated, how useful is that system anyway? It's more of like a cool thing. It's cool to see, like I would love to see the Sega Genesis, like the Sega rating system that lived for like a few years, or like all these like obscure rating systems. And maybe one day we will be able to see all those cool things because that's what Launchbox does. So yeah, it's definitely something we've always thought of, and it's always been sort of on our radar. That and yeah, a whole lot of other things as well for the games database.
Good stuff. So your next game has been decided. It is NES World Champion for
Oh
the.
wow.
I'm guessing that's the
Wait,
NES edition. Yeah.
do I even have
I
that?
did not think that would win.
Is that the new thing or
I
is
mean, it
this
was
an
up
old thing?
against Dig Dug and
No,
Asteroids
no.
and Millipede. No love for Junior Pac-Man, but I guess we've already seen your sweet, sweet Pac-Man skills.
So yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to tell the history of what this was. Here, this is a cartridge that was used for the Nintendo World Championships held in 1990 in 30 cities across the US and Canada. The player has a total of 6 to 7 minutes to play all 3 games, but this can be changed by some dip switches on it. I don't think we're going to be doing that. The first game is Super Mario Brothers, in which the player is given 99 lives and the goal is to collect 50 coins in the first level. Upon collecting 50 coins, the finished castle music will play and you'll get a score. And then you play Rad Racer. Using the 328 twin turbo vehicle, the player must finish the course as quickly as possible. No clock is shown in the game, but the cartridge keeps tracking internally. After finishing Rad Racer, its score is displayed, multiplied by 10, and added to the previous Super Mario Brothers score. I don't know why they did that. Last up is Nintendo's Tetris in A-type mode. All remaining time for the championship is played out here. The player's objective is simply to get the best score. The Tetris score is multiplied by 25 and added to the previous Super Mario Brothers and Rad Racer score. After the time runs out, the screen will display time and display the final score, a sum of all the previous scores and their multipliers.
My
And
lord.
more importantly, we can live out our fantasy of being part of the 1999 tournament.
Huh.
Let's do it.
Do any of you guys do either of you guys own a Switch and have you picked up the recent NES Championship edition that just came out over there? I've heard good things about that one.
So I have a Switch, but oh geez, this stupid thing. Hold on. I forgot I left that plug-in in there.
That is awesome.
So I have a Switch, but I did not pick up the new thing. It was of interest, but my backlog is larger than that.
Yes. Well, who knows? Maybe after this you'll get the itch. You'll think, oh,
We'll
I
see.
can do this game.
So I've never opened
Let's do
this game before, so we'll see.
You know what? I've
It's not
never
loaded.
opened this game either.
Does it work?
It's guess we should have looked into this game beforehand.
I'm stuck on the
Is this where we're going to
splash
have to get
screen.
into the dip switches? How do you edit dip switches on an NES game?
Assumed the emulator would have to have support for it.
Let me Google this. Chat, maybe someone can tell us if anyone's actually played this game. How do you start NES Championship, World Championships on the NES?
Ooh.
Google is giving me everything for the Switch version, not the.
We know what number 2 was.
Yeah, maybe me.
I didn't want to do real work on this call.
Oh, Reddit says, note to
Oh,
people reading this, it says you have to use a specific cheat code. Putting in that, putting it in action makes the game start. Interesting. We may have to default to game 2, unfortunately. Let's see, what was game 2? Game 2 was Dig Dug for arcade.
I can play that.
Trying all the cheat codes we know off the top of our heads. Nothing's working.
Oh, hold on. This might work. It says someone says player 2 needs to press start if you have a second controller configured. It might just be what it needs to kickstart the, well, yeah, change the dip switches. Yeah, if that doesn't work, then we'll go to the next one.
That makes me need to have 2 players. What is the second
Muted
player
or I
on the
muted you or
keyboard?
something.
Nothing.
Got a good question here.
This might be too hard.
Yeah. Emulation's easy, guys.
I've got a second controller way over there somewhere.
This is a really nice idea when we were talking about adding those additional sort of things related to games. This one says have those accessible via the pause screen. I think that's a really cool idea. Things such as cheats, fighting codes,
Whoa,
fighting
okay,
game
that
moves,
worked.
etc. Oh, it worked.
It worked. Okay, so I set up a player 2 key. And I died.
Yeah, I really like that idea. So having more things available via the pause menu. I mean, I personally love being able to view the manuals through pause menu. I was saying this on stream the other day. It was playing through some GameCube games recently and not wanting to couldn't be bothered to whip out my phone and Google stuff and basically just popped open the pause menu, popped open the manual because a lot of those games were quite confusing with actually telling you what you should be doing. But yeah, that'd be really cool. It's nice to be able to quickly access that information directly from within Big Box. So is this a game of Brian versus himself?
I guess so. I don't know if I should just stop playing or keep going. It looks like
Did you
Josh's
just stop working so we'll
headset
use
has
instead,
died. There you go. We can hear you.
No.
Can you hear us, though?
I mean, we have hit the 2-hour mark, so...
Okay, sorry, I got sound back. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yep.
I'm
You
guessing they died. Maybe it's just battery. Who knows? Usually they yell at you. This nice British lady comes over the headset that says, sorry, your battery's about ready to die. And she didn't come on this time. I assume she's nice. Plug those in. All right, so you figured out how to get the game to go?
Yeah, you gotta get the second player start button mapped and press that.
I've never had a second player on this computer. You might have to
Yeah, I had
walk
to
me
map
through
it.
that.
Maybe I can see your screen.
Oh, it's the blowing thing again. Jeez, I keep forgetting about that. Sorry. I need to turn that off.
Oh man.
It's as annoying as it used to be. Okay, so can you do it while the game's loaded, or you gotta go into retro naturally?
I think at this point maybe
Just move
we can
on.
enjoy some Rad Racer, but
Mhm.
then let's move on to a different one.
Perfect.
We can go
Sure.
with the second option, which was the second option was Dig Dug on the arcade.
All right, let's go. That would have been fun. But yeah. Okay. So what was the
Excellent.
game? Dig Dug. Is that
Dig
right?
Dug. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Okay. Surprisingly, don't have a lot of experience with Dig Dug. I have played it.
I'm definitely more of a Mr. Driller in terms of digging through the
Yeah.
ground games, but Mr. Driller is a fantastic game.
These euphemisms. I didn't realize Jimmy Carr was on set.
Well, I almost got to live out my childhood dream.
I see you guys are on opposite ends of Team Bezels, or is that just a configuration error?
No, it was a configuration error on my side. I had them off, but then yesterday or the other day I reset everything for the dev stream build, and they came back. So I'm on. I usually don't want them on.
Yeah.
Eh?
All right. On your marks, or have you already
Uh-oh.
started?
I already started. Oh,
Okay.
he's kicking my butt already. I will admit I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. I've never played this. What's the point? To not die. To kill
Yeah, that's a
things,
good
I'm
point.
guessing.
I don't 100% remember.
We need help in the chat. Oh crap.
Ah.
I guess having a rock fall on my head was not one of the goals.
I think you have to get rid
No,
of the enemies.
you do.
Dig Dug.
Dang it. I was very close.
Dig your way through each garden patch, reach every enemy, and blow
Ah.
them up with a pump.
I blow them up. Okay.
Yeah, use the air pump to blow up the enemy. Slipstream says, dig down to enemies, harpoon them, and then blow them up.
I did it.
Ah.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
See, this is where you can tell where we spend our time on
Yeah.
organizing our games versus playing them.
Don't we all? All right. I only got a high score of 4,190.
Oh yeah, look at that. It even tells us on screen. Flowers indicate the next level. Well, let's ask you a question then before while we
Sure.
move on. We're actually getting through a big chunk of our AMA questions. We know that we were just pushing 2 hours here now, so we appreciate anyone who's stuck with us, and we're definitely going to go for a little bit longer, just until we run out of questions. So let's have a look. Brian, maybe you can talk about maybe just to clear up some misconceptions here, because we had 2 questions about this, and they're relating to themes. So let's see. So we have a question here, which is essentially boils down to: do we plan to update the existing default theme and essentially using a sort of functionality or sort of taking on board themes that have been created by the community and integrating that into these sort of official default themes. The second question here is, is there plans to basically essentially to take over theme development for sort of the most popular themes and make them sort of officially part of Big Box, like with regular updates, things like that? Maybe you can just kind of clear up where we sort of stand on that and how it kind of works at the moment with themes.
Oh, okay. So that's a loaded question. The first thing that I would say is that we're always updating the default themes to include any new features. That's how the default theme is designed to be sort of the standard that other theme developers can look at and say, oh, this is how it's done. Here's the new feature. Look in the default theme. You can grab the new stuff that we put in there and add it to your own theme. There's sort of like an example of how you would do it. And so every time that we have a feature that we add to it, for example, it's a small example, but the save feature that we're just adding to 13.16, the big box theme will have the badges that we're adding into LaunchBox. We're adding them to big box. You can kind of see here on my screen in this little tiny box right here. Here's where the badges show up, and they will be added to them. And so if a big box theme developer was like, hey, how do I add those badges? They'll be able to see the code in the default theme, and that's sort of like what it's for. As far as uh, taking over themes, um, it depends on what we tend to do is make sure that any of like the very popular ones where the theme developer has maybe stepped away, we make sure that they continue to work. Right? That's about as far as we go. There was an exception. I I was the one that built the colorful theme, and that was mostly because the old theme dev, the guy that designed it, he is not a coder. So he asked me if I wanted to be the one that actually built it because the way that he built it was not great. And at the time, I said, sure. And I built that up for him. Um, the problem is we don't have like there's no role within this company that is like theme developer where a guy just creates themes every single day. And so you can imagine, let's say we took on 5 themes and people are like, okay, waiting for an update to my favorite theme where you make sweeping changes or add new features to it. Like imagine just with colorful as just an example here, the guy, Viking, he sent me a whole bunch of cool concepts. It's like, oh, I'm thinking now about like a colorful 2.0. Here's a bunch of cool concepts. I went back and forth with him to sort of like design what he thinks would be a great 2.0 to a colorful theme, for better or worse. He made some sweeping changes to all the views. He wanted to add a game discovery center view, and it's just been sitting there because it would take me maybe like a month of just concentrating on building that theme to build that theme. And while I would love to spend a whole month building a theme, that is not my job to do so. And I would like to just have more time. So now just think about adding like a second theme or a third theme or like 5 themes. How many themes are we gonna add? 10 themes. Like it would just go on the pile and we would never ever actually get to them. And so that's what's great about the theming engine though, right? The goal is that we introduce all of these cool features, and anyone that has the really cool idea of how to build a theme can learn how to build a theme and build their like dream theme. And so that's sort of where we want to go. Like that's where we are right now. And So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it comes from a place of passion, of just, it just shows how sort of popular and how much people love these themes. There definitely can be a little misconception as to sort of what um, what you can and can't do with a community
Now,
theme. And I think as you
yeah,
were going through in your workshop, you were talking about, well, of course, the default theme will always utilize the sort of the latest and newest features, and of course the community themes, it will just take a little bit longer for them to adopt those types of things. But in theory, with time, the community themes, there's nothing that the community themes should be able to do in time we uh, that we would be able to do if we sort of took those on. And because it's what makes us special, it's what makes Big Box a sort of appealing product, is just the amazing themes that come with it. So we want to sort of continue to allow people to do that. And yeah, we sort of provide the framework and then let people run with it. So hopefully that kind of clears that up a bit. The next game is up for votes. It's looking Mario Kart SNES just took the lead there. So yes, it may end up being our first SNES game of the stream. I think we're also going to say, for those who potentially haven't managed to grab a secret code yet, this could be your moment. Should we do the reveal, Josh, do you think?
Sure. So I didn't put it on any other scene, so I got to switch back to this one. Apologies.
okay.
But here it comes.
So just for anyone joining, in terms of what this is a code that you can use in the giveaway to boost some entries. If you got one at any of the previous streams, you only use it once, so this one is not going to work for you. But for anyone who hasn't managed to grab one today, this will be your last chance, because they're only valid for the single day. So definitely grab hold of that one, which may or may not be somewhere on screen right now, and you can pop that in to boost your chances in the wonderful prize giveaway.
Does anyone want to guess or know the source of the code and what it does?
It is not The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Code, but kind of close in saying that it's not close. It's almost the same era. There you go. M24 2001. It is Aladdin, the Genesis version of Aladdin.
What does it do?
I believe it lets you start on any level, if I'm not mistaken. Although it's been a long time since I've used that code, but I have used that when I was a kid.
Okay, well, we still got a minute or so on the poll. It's looking like Mario Kart SNES, but let's answer one more question in the meantime. So we talked about themes. We've talked through quite a lot of things here. I guess continuing on themes, we had a question here from Solly for Life, who says, can we have something similar to the community themes creator for startup themes? And we were talking about this, and I think that could potentially be something that exists already. Is that right? Or we're not 100% sure.
For startup themes, I feel like the community theme creator does that. I could be wrong. But
Yeah.
remember, the community theme creator is not something that we build in-house. That was I guess, a wonderful third-party program by somebody in the community.
Yep, someone's just confirmed there that CGC does include startup and pause themes as well. So thank you for confirming that. This is a great one from Focusborg before we jump into Mario Kart, which is, if time and resources were not an issue, what would be a dream feature you would add to LaunchBox? We had some, this was a question on some of our Meet the Team posts as well, which some of our team contributed to. I think Andrea was saying a really great one that I thought, because he's obviously developing for Android. He said he'd love to see it on iOS, a LaunchBox launcher on iOS, and of course, early emulation scene there. But I think it would make a lot of people happy to have a sort of launcher The uh, specifics of how that would work, of course, is a lot more complicated, but that would be nice. But yeah, what would you guys pick?
So
A dream
What do
feature.
you think,
I,
Josh?
well, I know there's lots of different types of LaunchBox users. There's some people who spend more time curating their collections and filling in data and getting the right media than they do playing games. And there's people who just want to play certain kinds of games, whatever. There's lots of different types of users. The type of user that I am, I just want everything to work. Like, I don't want to have to tinker with an emulator or a controller or any of that. I just wanted the NES Championship game to work and have a button somewhere that said fix it. And so if I could wave a magic wand, I would just make sure that all of the things that I want to play just work when I click play without having to have done anything. For me, that part of it is less enjoyable.
And for me, I would one thing that I love to do. So one thing that I've done for many years, I fell in love with a whole bunch of different uh, massively multiplayer online games back in the day. So I was a big. I don't know if anybody remembers the Realm Online. I'm going to say no one remembers that game, but I remember it, and I will keep it alive in my mind. And I fell in love with those types of games. I played EverQuest quite a lot in my youth, and obviously World of Warcraft was there, and a whole bunch of others, Vanguard, other ones that people have never played before, like Worm Online. And the one thing that's really prevalent about those type of games that they turned into is just the um, the way that they continue to pull you in through gamification features, and something that I would love to see. I would love to bring that concept into Launchbox somehow, where you almost turn Launchbox into a game itself, and you you provide reasons for us to keep coming back every single day. Uh, Playing games give you more reasons to play games more than like retro achievements. Like imagine like retro achievements, but just ballooned into like a massive, I don't know, game with experience and points and stuff that you can do. Uh, like imagine if you could take retro achievement points and then spend them on rewards that you want to have, and that could be part of like Launchbox, and you earn badges and you earn all sorts of stuff. I would love to take that concept to sort of the next level and to allow me to have tons of reasons to just always have Launchbox up and going. Uh, I'd love stuff like that. Kind of vague, but that would be my answer. Although that is quite the feature there.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, if only there was a way that when I launch up my games, sometimes they don't load and I have to virtually blow into the microphone to get it to work. I mean, that just sounds like the best feature ever.
All yours.
If only there was a plugin for that.
Yeah.
There you
Limited time
go.
offer.
Yes. In all seriousness, I personally, I've often, I quite like the concept of kind of setting your own goals for games. And this is less of something LaunchBot specific, but potentially some sort of integration and with and I personally, maybe someone can tell me, haven't found a good system that really does this, but it's kind of setting your own goals for games and reinforcing that you can play games the way that you want. So I've often thought that, for example, systems that don't support like achievements, this is like a nice way to sort of push through, but obviously for those that don't have it, to kind of set my own goals for those games. So you know um, tracking sort of completion and an easy way to kind of do that. And of course, it's at the end of the day, tracking completion is not the way everyone wants to enjoy games. But for me, it definitely sort of helps give me some motivation to kind of go for that 100%. So yeah, just a nice way to be able to set my own goals in games and sort of see that represented visually, I thought it was often quite a nice thing. Maybe sort of tie that back to like a nice dashboard. I'm definitely a big data guy. I love seeing like numbers and stats of like, here's my backlog. Here's a nice pie chart. Here's a nice, here's my, I don't know, achievement completion over time, or the number of games that I've added to my collection over time. Like, definitely love the data side of things. And our collections have so much good data, but potentially a way to visualize that a bit more would be really nice.
Yeah,
That's a
I'd
really
agree
great
with
question,
that.
Focus
That's
Board.
really cool.
It's nice to reflect on those sort of more long-term things rather than just thinking about what's on deck right now. But speaking about what's on deck right now, I think it's time to load up Mario Kart SNES.
All right. I think what we should do is pick a course and just try to get through that course. First one wins.
Yeah, you can do time trial potentially, unless you want to get like
Oh boy.
let all the randomness of the computer players interfere with your.
No, time trial's fine.
I think I put the code on screen for
Which
those
course?
who
Which course
may
should
miss
we?
it. Oh,
Yeah, this is my new name, is it? I am.
yes, you are.
My new name.
All right, time trial.
Sure.
Now, chat, hands up. I mean, this is a classic game. There is no doubt about it. But does it hold up? Does it hold up well today? Is the question. It's a little frustrating. I find.
Which one should
It's-
we play? What do you guys think?
Yeah. Any suggestions for the course? Oh, you don't have Special Cup unlocked, so we can't put you on Rainbow Road, the one with no
No.
edges. That's a shame.
Actually, we don't only have Mushroom Cup unlocked. No, never mind. I have no interest in choosing which circuit, so it could be random.
All right. You. Yeah. What do you got? I love the SNES version of this game. This is the classic. Although it has
Ghost Valley
been
1.
a while.
That's the suggestion.
Ghost Valley 1. Here we go. Ready? Let's do it. It is okay.
Yeah. Focusbook says still holds up, but some people are saying the Switch version gets the most use. The N64 version. For me personally, it's got to be Double Dash. Hot take potentially, but I just want a Mario Kart with one track only of each game that comes out. Yeah, not multiple repeats of the same track. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the Mario Kart Ultimate, where it's because you're right. Every single time they remaster a tiny sliver of the tracks, whereas we really want the sort of Smash Ultimate route where it's just here's all the tracks with all
crap.
of the remasters.
You just won. I fell off. How did I fall off? I don't know. You could fall off.
Yeah, you can fall off at any point on this track.
Oh, of course you can't take the shortcut when you're on time trial if you've already used your your mushroom. But good music for this track, I remember.
Yeah, it's definitely a classic.
Yes, you can take them. You have to be good. Can you do that? Can you take the shortcut without the mushroom? You just have to be very.
You can try to jump at a very specific time. How did you do?
Look at that! So you're the winner, Brian.
Yeah.
So 127. Josh is 130.
Yeah. Guess I got a swig of this.
Yeah, after that Tapper defeat, you gotta.
I know. I've made up for it.
Okay, well, what tricky question can we give you next? We're almost coming to the end of our list.
The hardest
so
one.
the hardest one. Some of these questions, and for anyone watching this, if we haven't managed to address all of your questions, don't worry. We're going to make sure that each one is addressed on the forum post. Some of them are quite they're very specific, and they cover a very, very small subset. So we're not going to be able to dive into too much detail, but because they're sort of short answers, I think the questions we want to bring up here are more sort of conversational and provide a bit of insight and sort of background into our sort of thought process and roadmap. So just in case anyone's wondering, we had a quick question which was talking about the possibility of adding system-wide sort of database-wide configuration for snapshotting, sort of a risk-free way of rolling back instances. This one's interesting, and that feature does kind of exist already in that you can export backups, but I think they're referring to like an entire snapshot of the instance. So although that is not something that exists, and it's probably not high on our priority list because we do have the sort of database backup feature already, maybe someone can talk about something that just came out in the latest beta release, which regarding to locking emulator versions, because we've heard from people that they like to sort of maintain their own versions rather than LaunchBox doing it for them.
Well, I did win. So, Josh?
Yeah, as I was saying
I mean,
before,
I can talk about it if you want.
well, I think I'll answer abstractly, and then you can get into the details. As I mentioned before, you know, like my approach to wanting to use LaunchBox is different than someone else's, and every single feature that we have kind of has to skate that line between what does this kind of user want and what does that kind of user want. In the chat earlier, somebody had said, hey, it'd be great if LaunchBox just auto-updated plugins every week without me having to do anything. Is that something we want to do? And then we had somebody say, hey, let's make sure you never, ever, ever think about touching my emulator because I have it set up this way, right? We have both of those kinds of users about this one tiny little thing, which is, should we update an emulator? And so I think across the board, across every feature that we always have to kind of consider both sides of it. You know, I'm a lazy tinkerer. I just want things to work, and other people want to tinker, right? Don't you take away my ability to do that. And I think this question kind of has to be acknowledged that there's two answers always, and how many options and configurations and ways to control the application can we reasonably sustain while still being an easy to use tool. So that's my abstract answer, but you can dive into the specifics.
Yeah, so the specifics about what this feature is we wanted to give everybody the ability to update their emulators and expand the amount of emulators that LaunchBox will automatically update for you. And then there are people in specific situations that are like, hey, I don't want you to update my emulator. Not only do I not want you to update my emulator, I don't want you to tell me that there is an emulator update available. And I don't want to accidentally update this emulator. One example is Sega Triforce, which is a very, very, very old version of Dolphin. It's a fork of a very old version. Like, I don't even know how many years old now. Like 13 years
10,
old, something
10
like
or
that.
11, I think it was.
10. Yeah, it was a long time ago. And so we added the ability to so after we added the ability to allow people to update their emulators at their leisure, and all we did was point out here are some emulators that you can update. We also now have added a new ability for us to not do that at your leisure, and that is sort of the two sides of the coin there. On a per emulator basis, I should mention. So yes, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what the feature is.
Yeah. No, it's a cool feature. I've tested it out myself, and it's a nice. Just in the manage emulators window, you can easily sort of lock those versions, and then obviously we won't try to do anything with those. So Triforce is a good example there. Um, so yeah, that's kind of an interesting diversion from that question. We have an interesting question here from Focusboard, which is saying if it's already available, but profile features. So we did talk about profiles previously, and there was some want for wanting to create different profiles for different users. So a central sort of ROMs location and metadata, but then individual aspects such as playlists and favorites, things like that, being individual to users. But I like what you've added here about being able to and this is a use case that's come up, which I think is really interesting because we used to get asked about um, things like being able to hide the license name, like registered to. Um, and I think the most common use case for that is for things like streaming. So obviously, we're very happy if folks want to use LaunchBox to stream, but of course that license does sort of reflect the user. And then I like what you've also added here as well about potentially hide games that didn't age well on streams. Of course, you could utilize the hidden games feature already inside of LaunchBox, so you could mark those as hidden and then turn off show hidden, and that works both in LaunchBox and in Big Box as well. So that could potentially help on that front. But you are right about the license, and having a sort of streaming mode could be interesting. Discord does this quite well, where it sort of truncates personal information, but then still showing um, the majority of your collection.
Yeah, I would
So
say
yeah, I hope
like
that.
profiles and uh, like parental controls, stuff like that, where you might be able to say something like, "Hey, if it's a mature game, don't show it like on this profile or something like that." They are definitely old requests, and I remember back in the day where we would hold these massive, just way too large polls about what features that you guys were interested in. That one always, for some whatever reason, was on like the lowest of the low. Like no one wanted to vote for it for whatever reason, uh, and so it just kept getting added to more polls, and it kept getting put on the very lowest, like low, like no one wanted to vote for that stuff. Uh, so I mean that's just the history. It's like, why isn't it part of Launchbox? Because I guess you guys didn't want it like at the time. like, and so I remember distinctly like Jason like at the time saying like, that is a feature I want, but I cannot work on it because there's these 20 other features that were now voted higher, and I guess I've got to work on these features that you guys would want instead. And yeah, that's the history of that anyway.
Yeah, but it's a very good question, and it could potentially be revisited in the future. Maybe if this Twitch channel carries on, and maybe one day if we accidentally let one of our collections slip, then maybe that's the starting point for wanting to do this. But
Yeah, as we add more features that kind of, would benefit highly of some sort of profile feature, I'm sure that request will get higher and higher voted. And I don't know, as we all get older and have children or whatever, and then be like, oh no, this is actually a feature that we want. uh, it can have different, now that we're adding saves to the mix. Like, okay, well maybe you want a profile to swap out different saves without needing to have a duplicate copy of every single emulator. Maybe that's something that you would want, or maybe there's so many other features that we could add that could utilize some sort of profile thing, and it'll kind of exacerbate the fact that we don't have that yet. You never know. Anyway.
yeah. So the next game is decided. I think it was. It just dropped off my screen for a second. It is Marble Madness on the SNES, and I know
Oh, wonderful.
we've been we've been going for almost 2.5 hours now. We really appreciate if folks have been sat with us. We hope you found this kind of interesting and enjoyed our ramblings. I think we're probably going to go up until sort of the 3 hour mark, and we'll see how we feel from there. But I think we've got time for a few more games. We've got through most of the questions on the AMA, maybe a couple more. And of course, feel free to add anything you're curious about in the chat as well. And yeah, if you guys keep those questions coming, we'll keep answering them.
Every time that stupid blow into the microphone pops up, I think it's all broken. Like, why? Why? It's just so, I'm not used to it, and it's happened every time. I wish I could learn.
Your
Okay,
NEX is just super broken right now.
It is. It's getting worse every time I blow into it. Oh my gosh.
All right. Are we ready?
I think my name fits.
Off you go.
Almost.
Well, that didn't work out for me. Yeah, it's been a long time since I played this game. How's your history with this game?
This might be my first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Then it would kind of suck if I did not win.
So what's my goal? Is there a destination?
Get to the end. Yeah, get to the end.
Okay.
That's it.
And don't fall off, probably.
Yep. Just as fast as you possibly can.
Okay, well. That was really slow, I'm guessing.
This is giving me Sonic Labyrinth vibes on the Game Gear, if anyone played that. No surprise if you didn't, because it is objectively, again,
I did not.
That's death. Okay.
It's basically they took the one thing that made Sonic good, which was speed, and they basically took it away from him and dumped him in a labyrinth where he walks incredibly slow, and you kind of walk like a.
Where do I
rock.
go now?
But
not that way.
It's all part of the history.
Oh,
Can I get
such a hard time here?
No, that's death. Oh, here it is.
There we go.
That's a very kind comment there from Slipstream. Says it's not rambling; it's a behind-the-scenes look at what you guys go through to bring us the best experience for our.
Just a normal Friday.
It's very kind of you. Oh, really? So apparently in the arcade this was played with a trackball, which would definitely make sense.
It was,
and, make things a whole lot easier. I think that ties quite nicely into. We do have a question about trackballs, which the loser is going to have to answer.
Oh my gosh! Well, that's going to be me, so it's going to be Brian.
Are you sure?
Oh my gosh! I should have practiced all the games.
You only practiced Tapper, didn't you?
That was Retro Python's fault. Oh my gosh. It's harder than it looks.
Yeah, your question there, Focusborg, about making plugins. In theory, of course, anything is possible when it comes to plugins, but I like that suggestion in there as well from Average Game.
It's all you.
You group games in playlists. I'm always very curious. That's why I was quite. I have to go back and read all the great responses. I haven't had a chance to do it yet, but from the Game Gauntlet Day 5 question, because I'm always curious to see how people tweak and kind of configure LaunchBox, and we asked that question of, well, what is your favorite kind of tip and or sort of way of managing things? And I always really like to see people's like game structures and how they set up playlists. And a very surprising, I guess it shouldn't be surprising, but a sort of nice response to that question was a lot of people basically just said, my favorite way to use LaunchBox is actually just to like let it do everything for me, and I don't want to deal with the configuration, and I just want to play my games. And I thought that was actually really nice. It's hopefully it's nice that we can sort of adhere to both camps, and that if you want to go all out and configure the heck out of it, then you can. But of course, if you really just want it to let LaunchBox do that for you, and you want to dive straight into some Marble Madness, for example, then you can do that as well.
I'm doing pretty good. I think probably better than I thought I was going to be. There's no way I'm beating this game, though.
Wait, so this must be an arcade port, because this is the NES version, right?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the one we had at home.
Yeah, if you could, gyro support for this would be great.
Yeah.
Trickster says
There we go.
streamers allow me to remotely log into my cabinet and finally audit my ROMs. Much needed spring cleaning whilst chilling and watching retro gaming with you guys. So awesome. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining. And any particular favorites that you managed to get rid of? I go through a bit of a media metadata audit every couple of months, and just kind of try and clear out sort of image types that I've downloaded that I'll never use, but also games that I know I'll never play.
Ran out of time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice that people use it in different ways. So some of us use it as like, this is the curated list of games that I want to play, whereas I think the other camp is very much in LaunchBox is more of the archive, and it's more like a sort of centerpiece for a virtual museum of things that I've collected over the years. And there's definitely, I think what's nice is that there's definitely space for both camps to coexist there. And
it's funny
you're absolutely
how
right.
You spend all this time curating your set, your library exactly the way that you want, and you love it, and you want to show it off, and then the first thing you do is show it off to, like, I don't know, your nieces and nephews, for example, and all they can do is just like get completely perplexed by what they're actually looking at, and realize, oh man, maybe this isn't like the best way to have set this up for 10-year-old kids trying to like play some arcade games. And yeah, that's just a random story that might be related to someone here.
Maybe. I was showing off some things to my daughter, and she's young teen aged, and she loaded it up and she just picked randomly a game. And I'm like, no, don't pick that game. That game is really, really bad. You don't want to play that. She's like, no, I'm playing it. And it was 10-yard fight. And I don't know, or the 10-yard, whatever that football game is, that's really not very fun, not very good. And she played it for a good 30 minutes because it was just so amusing to her how bad the game was. So who knows? Maybe a poorly curated collection is good for the young ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
where you're
something
super
about
excited and you're like, there's 3,000 arcade games on here. Isn't that so super cool? And they're just looking through the games, and there's like I don't want to play any of these games. Like, what is this? Give me give me Spider-Man. Where's Spider-Man? And then they just play like one game for the whole weekend. That's the game, and they want to play it over and over again. Yeah.
There's something about curating the games that are so bad they're good, and then it's the games that are just kind of mid that you want to get rid of. But the ones with historical value that I did exactly the same thing recently. I had a friend over and booted it up, and he's a big fan of games. He instantly went to ET on the Atari, and we played through that for a bit, or attempted to play through it.
Yeah, that how was that? Was that fun for you?
I mean, fun.
Or is that the wrong word?
Yeah, different kind of fun. But we do have our next game up. I think we'll probably have time for maybe one, maybe two more. So we've got some games that there. Millipede is currently winning. Let's ask a question while that is running through, because speaking of trackballs, so we have a question here from Piper Calls, which talks about is there any chance we can get true analog navigation for things like wheel navigation? It also talks about different, and maybe we can talk about two questions together. It's to do with controller inputs. So the first one is talking about sort of true analog navigation for the things like wheels, and that's relating to inside a big box. They also talk about using additional control schemes like trackballs and supporting them throughout things like LaunchBox. And the second question is referring to navigation with different types of controllers inside a big box. So obviously right now you can use multiple controllers to navigate inside, but the thing is things like Nintendo and Xbox controllers will map A and B differently, and so you kind of have to adjust, mentally to know that, like, oh, okay, A on a Nintendo controller is confirmed, whereas on this other controller it's not in the same place, right? Which I understand can kind of cause some confusion. So maybe we can talk just briefly about how we think about like additional control devices when it comes to navigation, but also like mapping those and any challenges that come with that. Not a straightforward question at all, but who wants to grab that?
I guess the loser should grab that one, right?
Defer.
I don't know,
defer.
how do you feel, Josh? I can answer that.
Yeah, please.
All right. So, I mean, you just asked some fairly beefy questions, two different ones that have two different answers. Let's start with analog controls, or we can refer to it as, I don't know, trackball controls or spinner controls, or what else would potentially go into that? Maybe wheels, like a steering wheel, if it uses the same sort of input on a computer. I'm actually not sure if it does, to be honest. I think it doesn't. Anyway, so would I love to see that? Yes. Yes, I would. But I fully understand how the majority of users would not want us to spend a whole lot of time trying to get that in. For the users that do want it, I can understand why you would really want it. I've got a arcade cabinet over here with a spinner, and I'd love to be able to like spin the wheel in LaunchBox, right? And but at the same time, I fully can understand how that could, if you don't have one of those, why do you want, why that wouldn't be fun for you. I can also understand that it could be a little gimmicky. Yeah, you'd want to spin the wheel and it's really cool and fun to do, but I would probably then switch back to a joystick to have more very specific, like more control of what I'm actually doing than just like spinning a spinner as fast as I can, uh, which can be fun. I wouldn't say, I don't know how much I should go into it, but multiple attempts have been made to make that a reality. And every single time that we attempt to make these like analog controls, right? Because we don't just want it to kind of work. That's not a LaunchBox thing. We want it to like really work. We want it to feel like one to one. As I'm moving the trackball, the wheels moving exactly as my hand movement is going up and down. Complete analog. And we did get quite far once, but it took us a long time to get there, like way too long. This one feature that we understandably maybe 20% of users might use at all, and then like a smaller percentage that would ever use that as their primary like control. We're spending like an absurd amount of time trying to get that to work. And we got to the point where it was like kind of working, sort of working, but give us another month and we could do it. And we just never had another month to do it up to this point. So that's sort of where the trackball sort of scenario went, and that's sort of the history there. Would love to have it. I know Jason would love to have it as well. We both have arcade cabinets, but we're both like realists, and we both understand just because you want something and just because it might seem easy to implement, it doesn't make it easy, especially the way that we want it to work. Um, to answer the second question, which was, if you can remind me,
So the
I
second
could answer.
question was about if we plan to assist essentially with controller mappings when it comes to standardization of like button inputs and button locations. So the example is like
This
navigating
one's
through big box,
crazy.
but on different controllers have different
Yeah, so this
settings.
is like a crazy question that I know a lot of people want different answers to, and a lot of people want like different solutions, I should say. One person might want a whole bunch of different controllers to sort of match a very specific uh, like button combination for themselves. Somebody else might want uh, to match whatever's written on their controller, right? If it says A there, I want the A to always be, you know, button, the select
Yeah,
button,
the
but on a
lowest
different
button.
controller, button A is somewhere else, or and then I want you to remember all of those things. Um, what I'd say is that there's already very good software out there that will do this for you, that will not only fix LaunchBox or Big Box, but will also then fix all of the emulators that you had problems with all at once by just setting the controls once right at the source. Instead of
Yeah,
controller profiles, imagine like you just had all of your controllers and you're just like, okay, I want this controller to always be this, and I want this controller to always be that. And now you have
yeah,
it set up, like uh, agnostic to any program. And so now you go into LaunchBox and it just works. Big Box, it just works. RetroArch, it just works. All the applications
yeah,
that you can throw at it, all of your controllers are now acting in the exact way that you want, and you don't have to mess with anything. And
yeah,
so, if I were to think of the ideal solution for this problem that everybody has, that would be the solution. Would be like, okay, forget about profiles in Big Box or LaunchBox because that only solves the problem in Big Box and LaunchBox. And now you've got all of this other work that you have to do to get every single emulator that you want to have working with all of these controllers. Let's just go to the root of the problem, fix it. Like some of these programs will even be like if you're just like us and you're the only one that's playing in your world, you could set up all of your controllers to always be player one all at the same time, which is not how Windows works, right? If you had like four Bluetooth controllers, you turn them on one at a time. First one will be player one, second one will be player two, third one will be player three. Uh, and so you could like do that. You can just set up everything like, no, I want all of these controllers to be player one, and then they just are. And so you can just dole that out to like turn on all of your controllers and just swap between them like hot swap. You don't have to worry about setting anything up except in that one program. Stuff like uh, let's see if I can remember. I'm gonna butcher this name. Box Xbox X360 CE is a good program. I haven't used that in a while. Not sure how well that holds up, but I'm sure there are other programs that have existed. I've heard of more programs, and that's what I would do personally in my setup. That's what I have done in the past, and that's sort of the way that I'd go. And if we were ever going to include something like that, that's how I would do it, right? I would just tackle it at its source so that we can make it
Yeah.
work with everything. But since there's already programs that do it, it's sort of like falls down
Yeah.
the trail. I would much rather tackle stuff like controllers for a particular emulator, which is another highly requested feature, which is more like if I set up my controller inside of LaunchBox or Big Box, automatically now make my choices work with the emulator in question.
Yeah.
Harken back to what Josh's saying, just make it work. I don't want to tinker with it, just make it work. So in PCSX2 or something like that, we can be like, well, you told us that your controller's A button is this and B button is this and whatever. We're just gonna like do the math and transfer that to PCSX2 and just make sure that your controller works without you having to do anything. There are a lot of challenges with that, but that's what I would I probably want to spend my time on more.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's one of those things where there are a lot of good solutions out there that can potentially handle this. And of course, we could take this in-house and we could try and find maybe a better way or sort of easier way of doing it. But it's one of those things that because there are options out there, it's not something that we feel we should particularly go after because we probably won't do as good a job. So, and there's some good solutions here in chat, like ReWASD is a good solution that I've personally heard of as well. And I guess to recap, there are, as you were saying, if you can set it up at a sort of controller profile level with an additional application that maps all of those buttons internally, then you don't have to worry about it being specific to Big Box. It will help solve those mappings within their emulators themselves as well. So, and going through, I mean, you may think there is a recurring theme when it comes to answering these questions that we certainly don't want to sort of poo-poo on these individual requests that may be not as popular with the broader community, but we know are incredibly important to you personally or specific users within the community. We certainly do hear that, and what we're not saying is like, oh, your request is not important to us, so we're not going to do it. It's just that of course we do want to make sure that we're creating sort of the best experience for a lot of the majority of users. We're finding new ways to innovate, and so we do have to make those tough calls sometimes where it's, well, we know this is a really, really nice request but the reality is that it just doesn't affect as many people. And so unfortunately, we are going to have to make that call of potentially moving that further down the priority list. But that don't let that deter you. And it certainly doesn't mean that we're not listening. It's just that we do have to sometimes make those calls when it comes to these requests. So
And I think
I think we'll move on. Oh,
I was
sorry,
just going
Josh.
to add, I think those opportunities historically sometimes have been solved by the community itself through the existing plugin architecture and the community sharing, be like, hey, these are the tools that I use. Perhaps when LaunchBox can't solve the problem directly, we could do a better job of helping you find the right answer. And so if one of these tools does solve that problem, perhaps the effort that we need to do is just to help the user find that tool and set it up, right? And then they can go and configure it the way that they need to. And the community has solved a lot of these sorts of issues, not just controllers, but all over the place. I'm like, oh, it'd be nice if there might be a plugin for that. And I would ask anybody who's out there that is developing plugins or is trying to solve a problem and you can't find the right way to do it inside of LaunchBox, those sorts of features I think we love to entertain, of like, I'd love to build a plugin, but you don't let me hook into when the user does this, right? And I really need to do that so that I can build the plugin correctly. That's a much smaller feature request than solve controllers, right? And so I think when those plugins are being created, we can assist with the plugin development, making sure that LaunchBox works well with those tools, so that the whole product gets better, even if we're not the ones directly, this team in front of you is the one directly solving it. We're still supporting the enablement of the solution, as it were. And so don't take any of our nays or poo-poos as like it's not going to happen. It's just, it may need to happen differently, maybe through a community effort or a plugin on your own behalf, or an integration with a third party that solves a problem. Uh, so every problem having 7 different solutions, we just have to find the one that works best for the most people. And when that doesn't work for you, let's make a plugin for that, or let's give you some way to override a behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are coming up to the 3-hour mark here on this stream. How are you guys? How are you guys feeling? I think we're definitely going to do one more game, but I think we'll probably start winding it down after this. So
Yeah.
for anyone who's stuck with us throughout the stream, that's incredibly kind of you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun for us. This week personally has been a really nice way to celebrate with everyone. And of course, we'll close it down a little bit later on, but let's enjoy. I've forgotten what the game was. It was voted on, and it was
It was Millipede.
ready, but Millipedes. Ah, that's the winner. Okay. So we will do that. In the meantime, while the guys load that up, underneath my username, you will find the secret code. So this is the last day to use the secret code. If you haven't managed to grab one already, you can pop that code into the prize giveaway for some extra draws into the goodie grab bag. And hey, there's Andre. Andre in the chat. Still watching this amazing stream instead of doing work. Yeah.
All right.
Adrian's going to be like modding Skyrim. But that's really kind of you. It's actually very humbling to see the comments of folks find this kind of stuff interesting and the insight. And yeah, it's always, I think that's one thing we wanted to, no, Josh, you were saying you felt very strongly about this kind of celebration being obviously not just a fantastic week for things like discounts and giveaways, but also kind of giving a bit more insight into the sort of, you know, the company that is Unbroken Software and the sort of team and the people behind it. So these guys have got started without me already, so and that's very kind, Focus Pork. This has been the best gift you guys have given us. Well, we've had a really fun time doing it, and I think we're definitely going to think carefully about how we can continue to do more of this. Just Dan Patrick says, where do we stand on how long to beat in Big Box other than that one plugin? This one's quite interesting. I feel a lot of people responded very well to that plugin. So I pinged Viking in advance of that stream and just said, hey, do you mind if I show off this plugin on stream? I want to demo how to easily install a plugin. And this one was very straightforward to set up. Its functionality was quite basic in terms of what it provides, and it works very well. And he said, yeah. And it's nice to see, I think a lot of people looked at that and thought, this is actually like really amazing. And it's one of those examples of, there's always, and the conception sometimes is, well, let's take these things and move them in-house. But, you know, at that point, it's what value can we provide that isn't already there with the existing plugin? You know, we were talking about themes earlier, and the conception is, well, if it's part of, you know, Big Box officially, then it must be good. But that doesn't negate that the things that are done by the community are just as good, if not better, in some cases. So, you know, we definitely value that connection of working alongside the community, and they continue to create great things, and we're very grateful and happy for that. But yeah, you know, down the line, how long to beat? Obviously, if there is potentially some integration that we can help to sort of facilitate internally, then of course that's cool. That plugin in itself, it provides some really great functionality. I think one of the limitations of that right now is just in terms of how we implement custom fields, in that they're just strings and text fields right now. And because that is dealing with numbers, it's not very easy to sort of sort on that data. So I sort of said, well, it would be amazing to sort of sort by games based on how long it takes to beat them. But of course, because that custom field is a string, it doesn't properly sort as it would if it was like a number field, for example. So definitely some improvements we could do there that could facilitate, better implementations of these plugins.
I mean, I can throw in my 2 cents there as far as the how long to beat plugin. I love a how long to beat, or at least that type of data. Helps greatly when trying to choose which game to play. Uh, and I loved it so much that I reached out to the guy over on How Long to Beat. I don't know. I made my case because there actually is no public API, right? He doesn't want you to use his data, right? Like people have created web scrapers and like scraped his data and then said, "Here, use this data that I stole from him." Uh, and so I reached out to the guy, and I've yet to hear back. He has ghosted me. Uh, so I think a few years passed, and I raised my case again and sent him another email. Yeah, he still ghosted me, and so really, it's not a matter of how can we do it. Luckily, like Joe found some backdoor thing that allows him to make his plugin work, but having that like an official thing, unless there's a public API that comes out that allows us to scrape that, or unless there's like we get a way in, there's really not much officially we can do. So I'm really glad that Joe stepped in and did his thing. There are other things we could potentially do, but I don't even know. Like we could just have our own how long to beat data type of stuff and put that on the games database, and then people can just populate that in some way, and that could be a feature that we work a month on or whatever it
Mm.
takes for that to get the tools. Um but
Yeah,
at the
I think
moment
an
that's sort of
interesting,
where we stand. That's
yeah,
the
and the interesting
insight
thing
that I
that
can
comes out
provide
from
anyway.
this, the thing that comes out from this is because there's a very kind comment here from Professor PhD. Love that username. It says I spent more time messing in LaunchBox this week than the entire last year because of you guys. And firstly, thank you. We're glad you enjoyed it. But events like this, and I think it really shines a light on some of the features that folks aren't particularly clued into in the day to day, and the streams on sort of plugins and themes. I think was a great example of exposing more users to that type of functionality. And it seems scary on the outside, of course, but if you can spend some time and you dig into it, then yeah, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Of course, from an official standpoint, we have to make sure that we have the right tools to be able to do those things. But that's where the community steps up when there isn't the option to do that, to sort of come up with amazing solutions that complement that. So no, it's been great, and we appreciate that comment as well. We're glad you've enjoyed the week and spent some time with it. Hopefully now, after all this week of tinkering, all of us can get back to actually playing these games.
That's right. Let me figure out if there's any games that I want to play. Do some
Yeah,
game searching. Dragon Blaze.
I do love those tall. I don't know what you call them. Those tall placeholders in the Game Discovery Center.
I guess technically they're called templates. The tall
Yes.
template. I think I called it.
That's really cool. Just
Boxing
Dan Patrick,
bugs.
thanks saying about the sort order. Yeah, it's those little tidbits. If we can share those, that and because they're those things that they're those small features that are very small in scope but provide a lot of impact to people in their workflow. It's a really great feeling when folks discover those, and it also harpens back to a lot of the requests that we talked about, where we certainly don't want to sort of poo-poo on those requests, because we know that those small things, they do add a lot of value to certain users. Um, and yeah, there's obviously big, any product company like this, you have to balance big sort of sweeping initiatives with things versus small sort of quality of life and like smaller features. So that's what we're trying to do here. I guess just to start sort of winding down a bit, again, for anyone who's been here the whole time, we really appreciate that. For anyone who joined halfway, so we've gone through a huge amount of the AMA questions, and thank you to everyone who submitted those. We haven't managed to get through everything, and of course, we've tried to group things together just so that it's more sort of comprehensible for the stream and sort of useful for the wider audience. But don't worry, if we haven't addressed your very specific question, we will be posting on that AMA post later on in the week. And we will make sure that everyone gets answers to those specific questions. So, of course, thanks again for submitting those. The code is on screen, so this will be the final code if you haven't managed to grab that yet. But yeah, guys, I mean, I guess, do you want to should we close things out with just your thoughts on the week and kind of what your feelings are and how you're feeling after this?
Yeah, let me answer the question there. Could you customize the template to have something like a trophy instead of a tall template? Yeah, that was the goal of yesterday's stream that I did, was show people that this whole thing is themable and you can switch it out and make this look like anything that you want, really. Uh, the default theme is there for people to analyze and to look at, for theme developers to analyze and look at, and kind of see how they would do it, and so they can implement their ideas. So for sure that you could do something like that. But to answer your question, Andy, uh, I guess the event for me was amazing to see all of the streams and the people and everybody come out and make comments and uh, suggest games that maybe I haven't heard of, uh, which is, amazing in and of itself, is to just to learn about that gem that you haven't heard of that came out 20, 30 years ago. And just seeing all the love for LaunchBox and games and retro games and all that cool stuff. And yeah, that's it. It's been amazing for me to see all that stuff, and to just hopefully this is just the beginning. And it's been 11 years, but there's so much left on our plate that we want to do, and hopefully this AMA has kind of uncovered some of that for you guys. And like, in an ideal world, we just get through it all. Just like tomorrow, we'll just hammer through it and then just have it for you guys. But unfortunately, we live in this world, and we do our best, and we hammer through this stuff as quickly as we can, get it out to you guys, and we are just so ecstatic every day that we get to do this for you guys. And just thanks so much for coming on this ride with us in this last 11 years and counting, really.
Not much
Yeah.
for me to add to all of that. I'll echo everything that Farron just said. It's the event itself for me. Like, it wasn't that long ago that I was talking with Brian about, like, we should probably do something for the 11th anniversary that sounds important, right? And it turned into this. And it's been, you guys get to enjoy this for this week. We've spent the past few months kind of planning and prepping and getting everything ready for this opportunity, and yeah, it's been the response has been great, and looking forward to seeing how we can one up ourselves again on the next feature, the next release, the next anniversary celebration. So thanks to the team, and thanks to the community, and thanks to all of you for joining in.
Yeah, the bar has been set high now for the standard of celebrations. Yeah,
All
and of
right.
course, obviously, Jason being the sort of visionary and founder of this, and we mentioned this earlier on in the stream, but of course, he's sort of balancing his time a little bit more now with different things going on, but definitely still sort of involved, and I know is very proud of everything that's been going on, and obviously still is very grateful for your guys' support. So he does obviously send his regards as well.
And Focus Borg, you tried it 10 years ago. That was a very long time ago, and you did not like it. Was it even a front end at the time that supported more than just like MS-DOS and importing games manually into the program? I don't even know. And then, yeah, you can see 2 years ago you tried it, and I'm glad you liked it 2 years ago. And hopefully you've seen all of the work that we did for the last 2 years kind of culminate into what it is today. And hopefully we'll just keep pumping it out as quickly as we can to get new features and new exciting things for you guys.
Yeah. So I guess we'll close it down here, but just a big thank you to obviously everyone on the team who worked really hard to make this happen. We did highlight some folks, and there's a lot of folks working behind the scenes as well who all make this happen. So a huge shout out to them. Big thank you to our moderators who help with answering questions, and our community as well, people who contribute to things like themes and plugins, and obviously just everyone here for being around and being part of this celebration. So still ongoing. We still got the rest of today, and although the events will end today, the sale continues through tomorrow. So definitely make the most of that if you haven't. But yeah, it's been a really fantastic week, and we've really enjoyed this. Yeah, more to come. And just thank you once again for all being part of this.
And I do want to audibly respond to Renner 2000's question. So there's a discount going on right now for LaunchBox licenses, the best pricing of the year so far. And there's also a giveaway for some potential licenses that you could win. How to choose? I'd say go for both. If by chance you buy a license and you win the giveaway, we can either give it to a friend, or we could refund your license purchase. So there's no risk in getting the discounted price. The only risk would be waiting until Sunday when this is all over and not having had one, or not having gotten the discount. So if you're looking to do it. And if you win, great. We can benefit a friend or get you your money back.
Yep, some very wise advice there.
Despair.
All right, guys. I couldn't wait. I had to
Okay.
start playing a game.
I got the
except
code
you're
right over
covered
the
by the
thing. I'll cover your face instead. Oh, it's upside down. Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep. So we will try and make these available later on next week. They're available on Twitch for now. You can definitely join in on the forum conversations, and for those asking as well, obviously once the competition's all closed, we need a bit of time to process all of those, but we will be reaching out either via email or via forum to sort of announce those winners. And so yeah, there's hopefully we really do hope that you guys walk away with something. There's been a lot of very good prizes up for grabs throughout this, whether it's a key, whether it's a license, or who knows, maybe one of the granddaddy prizes. And yeah, of course, if you do, we'd love to sort of hear how you get on with that lovely prize. But best of luck to everyone. I think we're going to call it. Does that sound good, guys? It's been a fun morning for me, evening for you.
Yeah,
All
yeah, I think it's definitely a good time.
Alrighty. Well, from all of us here at the LaunchBox team, thank you all very much. Thanks to all our community and fans, moderators, everyone who helps make us what we are today. And it's been a fun week. And yeah, it doesn't stop here. We'll see you all soon.
Yeah.
Happy gaming.
See you guys.